Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. This is the Gloucester School Committee meeting at the Gloucester High School. Consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. I will state that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. It is with great sadness that I have to acknowledge the events that happened in Texas yesterday, where many children and 2 adults' lives were taken. So I ask that we keep these families and everybody directly impacted in our thoughts and prayers, and I ask that you join me in a moment of silence. We will now have the salute to the flag.
To the flag, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is oral communications. Oral communications, the public shall have the opportunity at every school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communication shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. The school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. So if there is anybody who is in attendance that would like to speak under oral communications, now is your opportunity. Okay, seeing none. We move on to recognitions. It's a busy time.
We have a number of them. If someone starts with one, I'm going to load some photos and maybe video of another one. So
I'll start with the Drama Fest, which happened last week, and many kids performed really kind of some pretty cool musical skits or numbers on stage at Gloucester High School. And I think it was a really nice event for these kids to have kind of a casual way of performing. So that was pretty fun.
I wanted to recognize the Senior Safety Awareness Day that happened, I think, on Wednesday at the high school, Thursday at the high school.
Oh, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Which was yesterday.
I want to recognize Officer Scola and Dean Alves and Ted Costa from Bruce Tarr's office and all the staff and everyone who really put together a really engaging series of demonstrations about safety, about what it's like to drive impaired, what happens to you in a rollover when you're not wearing a seatbelt. They made it fun, and I think it was a really, really important message to everyone, every driver, not just seniors in high school, every single one. So I wanted to commend and recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to recognize, and I'm not sure if they were already recognized, but the Junior ROTC Award ceremony that we attended. Phenomenal event. Really impressed by the students there and the leaders and the work that those students put in, not only in the schools, but in the community. So I wanted to recognize that.
So I don't know if it's going to work, but I've got 2 short videos to play. Last week at Shannon Lou in Rockport, the O'Malley Jazz Band opened up for the GHS Jazz Band. And the O'Malley Jazz Band made a surprise appearance. which was fantastic. I'm gonna see if this will work. I don't know if it will.
Curtains open.
Curtain's open, right? I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to hear this. I don't know if it is gonna work at all. Apparently, for us, it will not. Trying to work. Well, I'll show just 2 pictures. So, over here. It's not working. Oh. Sharing it. So that is the O'Malley Jazz Band, led by their student director. Name I don't remember, maybe the videos here does, but sorry.
Sean Buckley? Is that Sean Buckley?
Oh, Buffy, yep, thank you very much,
No problem.
student director.
You
Oh,
guessed,
yes.
Darren, you'll go ahead tonight.
And then, and so they, I mean, it's full saxophones, clarinets, trombones. The trombone section was pretty hot. Okay, drummers, that sort of thing. Everybody got a guitarist, and then that's the video they won't show. And then after that was the JHS Jazz Band. Both did a fantastic performance. You can see the curtains was up. It was a beautiful night, and I haven't been to many concerts at Shannon Lou, but the place was rocking. There was so much energy, enthusiasm from the assorted masses, and people were so happy to be there, and it really brought everyone a lot of joy. Everyone, so thanks to both Carlos Menendez and Cole Lundquist, the directors of both bands. They clearly are having a lot of fun working together and just developing a lot of fantastic visions. So fantastic night. I'll do another O'Malley one unless Lynn wants to, about Evening of Excellence last night.
Oh, sure, I can jump in. Evening of Excellence, this is our return. The last one was in the spring of 2019. And it was my first year here, so it was a different experience for me. So last night we did it a little differently. Teachers stayed in their classrooms and students were invited to guide their parents or family members, whoever they brought, through their work for the year. We also invited 5th grade families to come and explore and get a sense of what was going on at O'Malley and what experiences they would have. So the stage band played in the Commons for about 45 minutes, so people could meander through for that. I told Mr. Destino, who's been there longer than I, that this was the best turnout we've ever had for a night like this. And it was a little uncertain as to whether it would come to fruition with our COVID bubble that we dealt with very recently, but it was great. The teachers did very different things. In some places there were posters all over the walls, in some places teachers led presentations, and other places there were activities set up for parents to get involved in. One particularly memorable one was 7th grade, Mr. White's science class. He had hung a bowling ball from the ceiling and had the adults sit in a chair and pull the bowling ball close to their face and then swing it. And of course it comes back. It's the laws of physics say it will never come back farther than where it started. So of course the adults got a little moment of panic as they weren't really sure if they trusted those laws of physics. But it was there was a lot of energy, a lot of great enthusiasm, a lot of positive comments at the end of the night. And we hope to do it again similarly next year and give some thought to what went well and what maybe needs a little brush up or a revision and go from there. But staff did a great job.
There are only 2 times I've seen those parking lots as full as last night. I mean, it was for the hockey playoffs earlier this year,
Yeah.
and then the academic evening of excellence. So just a great combination. It's a great event last night. Thank you, Lynn, and to your staff for putting it together.
I guess I have a few over here. So I will, Ben had talked about the O'Malley Jazz Band and the Docksiders last Wednesday. Tonight, we have the chorus at the Shaylin Lou, where we probably don't have a lot of people on the call today. They're probably at Shaylin Lou having the chorus serenade them in that beautiful location. But I would echo what Ben said about last Wednesday. And I know there will be recording of this evening. I did check in with Mr. Lundquist, so we'll all keep an eye out for the recording from tonight. So in addition to that, we have some great news from the spring sports season. Our spring track team, the girls team won the Northeastern Conference Lynch Division Championship with a 4-0 dual meet record against the other division teams. This past Saturday, they competed in the NEC Championship meet, and the following students finished at first place. We had Colby Rochford in the 400 meter and Caroline McKinnon in the 800 meter. And the girls 4x400 meter relay team came in first and broke our school record. And that team is made up of Sky Shalino, Rose Grollo, Caroline McKinnon, and Darcy Muller. Over 24 of our athletes at GHS qualified for their respective events at the state meet. You have to get a certain score to make it that far. So more than 24 of our kids did that, and and that meet is this Thursday and Saturday in Hingham. And while I'm mentioning Hingham, triumphantly, our sail team beat Hingham today and won the state championship in sailing today. Going into today, they had a 9-0 record, so now 10-0. It's the best in our school's history. And the students on the team are Olivia Hogan Lopez, AJ Lewis, Ryan Lewis, and Alicia Hogan Lopez. So state champions today, appropriately in sailing, and always good as somebody from the South Shore, always good to beat Hingham. Tomorrow night we have academic recognition night, so hope folks are able to make it to academic recognition night. So we'll be celebrating hundreds of kids tomorrow night. And I got a sneak peek at the agenda, and it's really exciting to see how far kids have come, and some kids who have grown since COVID and being back in person this year and are really turning things around and being triumphant performances. We also see how their areas of focus where students are really excelling. So it's going to be a great night tomorrow night. The last thing I'm going to mention is a Senior Spirit Week, and today was anything but a backpack day, which was pretty awesome. So students brought things to carry their books and their Chromebook and everything other than a backpack. So we saw a baby carriage. We saw lots of lobster pots, including one student says, "My dad will kill me if I bang up my lobster pot that they cook lobster in," but she took it anyway today. We saw guitar cases with books instead of the guitar inside, vacuum cleaners. Parents who might be on the call listening tonight might want to check and make sure they got everything back that they lent today. But it was really fun. It's a great kind of spirit and bonding. Kids had a lot of fun with it this week, and each of the days they've been very creative. Friday, they'll be over at Stage 4 Park for their senior picnic, which is really exciting as well, and the distribution of yearbooks. So lots coming still, but that's this week for the seniors in the graduating class of 2022. So there's some of what's going on at GHS.
The seniors are completing their classes
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Don't. Some of you know, a couple of us in this room are parents of seniors, so it's a big day tomorrow to have the last class. In denial of it. But.
More evidence that we are hurtling towards the end of the school year. A lot of work to do still, all across the board, but it's coming quickly.
First, I just, in light of your moment of silence, I do want to just acknowledge the people in our school buildings who are continuously asked to hold space for these difficult conversations for both our students, our staff, and our parents. You show up time and time again, and you're processing it at the same time as everybody else. So I just want to acknowledge how important your role is in helping to communicate clearly and effectively how important safety is in our buildings. So I first just want to acknowledge that. And then second, I want to acknowledge Cole Lundquist, is that how you say his name? I just want to make sure I got it right, and Jessica Kirk. I know staff show up to student events all the time, but I went to my daughter's piano recital with Alexandra Grace And I happened to be sitting behind, or in front of, I'm sorry, these two teachers who came to support their students who were performing that night. And their enthusiasm was just infectious. They literally clapped and cheered and stood for every single person performing on that stage that night, including a little 4-year-old that got up there. I joked with them that they were there really just there to recruit and scout upcoming talent. But they just,
I talked to Cole, it's true.
yeah, I mean, there are some that we want to make sure we get because they're incredible. But they just had so much enthusiasm and excitement for the students on stage. So I just want to acknowledge just their presence there.
And follow on that, I just want to point out that later we'll be accepting a pretty large grant from Gloucester Education Foundation that is for these early musical lessons for kids to kind of continue to build that next. Okay. Excellent recognitions. With us tonight, we do not have the Gloucester High School Student Advisory Council. The last meeting was the last, and in the fall, we'll end up with, we'll have the new people from the then senior class. Next item is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they would like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Maria, may we have a roll call vote?
Mayor Verga,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
and Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Without objection, I would like us to consider taking the item in action, approve the superintendent's recommendation to appoint Amy Pascarello as the assistant superintendent effective October 1st, 2022.
Great, thank you very much. So tonight I seek your approval on my appointment of Amy Pascarello to be Gloucester's Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction effective October 1. I'd like to say a few things about Amy, if that's okay. We've known Amy, her energy, intelligence, leadership, and excellent work since she became principal at East Gloucester in 2015. Prior to coming to Gloucester, Ms. Pascarello was an assistant principal in Newbury and Peabody. She taught 4th and 5th grade in Connecticut and Virginia, and also was a media specialist. She has degrees from UMass Amherst and the University of Virginia. Wow. She has served as an adjunct professor at Simmons College, working with experienced teachers supporting their growth and development. More importantly, she's been doing a fantastic job here in Gloucester. The assistant superintendent position is a difficult job with a tremendous breadth of responsibilities. Ms. Pascarello has demonstrated excellence across many domains throughout her career as an educator. First and foremost, Ms. Pascarello is all about the students. The well-being of students and the need to prepare them for the next step in their lives drives her work every day. Her love of her students comes through every morning, and how she greets children with a warm hello and a bright smile that lets them know she is so happy to see them. Next, Amy Pascarello is devoted to Gloucester. Like many people who come to Gloucester, she has fallen to the city hard for our families, for our students, and her colleagues. She wants to work in our fair city for many years. Working side by side with coaches, Greg Bach, and East Gloucester teachers, Ms. Pascarello has helped lead the incredible curriculum and instruction work that you've learned has been so important to our elementary schools, excelling over the last five and more years. She has deep knowledge of what excellent instruction is and how a rich, engaging curriculum supports teachers to do their best. Amy was an integral part of our reopening team in the summer of 2020. And was one of the first to say that we would make it through the entire year without closing schools. She told me that early and often.
In July.
And it worked out. With Principal Fusco, she has led the effort to replace the East Gloucester School with a new building, from making the original case for a new school, the design process, building community support, and giving input on just about everything from paint colors to the playground. Ms. Pascarello has been essential in helping to build a new school in Gloucester. Just today, we're looking at paint colors again. You also know Mrs. Pascarello is someone who doesn't shy away from the most challenging work. She handles difficult conversations with care and compassion, whether she's working with students, staff, or family members. During the interview process, Ms. Pascarello demonstrated to the teachers, coaches, and principals involved she's a great listener who will do the work to make sure she understands the strengths and challenges we face across the district, from preschool through high school. Both committees were unanimous in supporting her for the job. I consider Amy Pascarello as a colleague who I can rely on for good counsel, thoroughness, and attention to detail, and very, very good judgment. I'm so glad to appoint her to be our next assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and urge you to approve my appointment.
Yeah, someone like to make a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve Amy Pascarello as our next assistant superintendent.
Second.
Discussion?
Just on the transition time, so Greg.
So I can give you a number of details, not all of them quite yet, but I'm happy to do that. This is a good time.
Sure.
So we will, so as folks know, East Gloucester and Veterans are consolidating. There's a new school that opens. Also, Mr. Greg Bach has, the reason we're talking tonight, is because Mr. Greg Bach is going to be retiring, sorry, at the end of December. I intend to post for assistant principal for East Gloucester as soon as possible. Ms. Pascarello and the assistant superintendent for East Gloucester would open the school together. So Amy will continue to be the principal at East Gloucester to the beginning of October. I guess we'll make sure the school gets off on a really great start. Then she'll come over to the district office and work with Greg. So we'll have a couple months of really good transition for the two of them. Going back to East Gloucester for a second, the assistant principal then would work with Mr. Fusco, and they would lead both schools. Really, primarily one in each school, but it would allow both of them to spend time in both schools, getting those staff more deeply and continuing the consolidation process. It is Amy will have a full job of her own, but it's also likely that she'll continue to support both schools. She'll continue to pick paint colors and design furniture. I'm not getting her way on that. But no.
Do the videos.
Yep, do the video, that's exactly. But that's the basic concept. Of course, a lot of details to work out. But the basic idea is that, and then the assistant principal and Principal Fusco would continue on together as a team, as the administrative team at the new school.
So Greg and Amy would be October, November, December.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on this role. So, been on the committee for 14 years, and I can say this is probably one of the most bittersweet votes I've ever had to take it. Brendan, get emotion. When you came back from Rockport, that was a really good highlight for the school. And I was glad that you came back. And very sad, but happy for you that you are making choices. So it's good for you. And leaving our district, like you're leaving our district in extremely good hands with Amy. I've gotten to know Amy over the past many years as my granddaughter was at her school. And I could not be more impressed with this choice. So I wholeheartedly support this.
I have to echo what Melissa said. I remember Greg from his days as the IT director.
Yeah.
And then moving over to the principal at East Gloucester School, and the position you're in.
I had a 1/16 of an inch more hair then.
But so Amy, you have big shoes to fill, but I'm pretty confident you're up to the task. So congratulations.
I will also say it is very bittersweet. If anybody loves Gloucester, we have administrators and people in place that truly do. Greg is, probably the top example. So Amy, we're happy to have you. We're glad you embrace Gloucester as your own. And I'm glad to see your career progress with this district. Thank you.
Do you mind if I say one thing about
Absolutely.
transition?
Sure.
Couldn't be more happy because this is it's a rare opportunity to not have a transition that involves essentially a note on the desk and maybe an hour of here's where that is, here are these files, good luck. That's pretty typical if you even get any transition. Yeah, so that's pretty common. That's not good for a district at all. And I think it's just it's a rare opportunity for two people to work really well together, to continue working really well together, but also to provide the best transition possible. And that doesn't mean doing things the way I've done them at all. I don't have, particularly after the last 2 years we've just been through, there are a number of things that need to be restarted, and it's a great opportunity to restart them and also rethink them. And so
I'm really hopeful that we can take out some of the things that had to be put on a back burner and build them from scratch this fall. And having that time to take them out and not own the way they were, but just to actually look and think about, okay, in 2022 and 23, what's the best way to do this? And I'm completely confident that the two of us working together are going to be able to do that. And it's just such a rare opportunity that I wasn't feeling great about finishing up after the last couple of years, because there's been disarray in a lot of things that we've used to do, but I'm really happy about the thought of launching things with somebody who can take them and redesign together. So she's fantastic, such heart, has done a great job at East Gloucester, but has been a real leader in her team as well. And it's been fantastic.
I doubt she went down in slides though in East Gloucester like. we
I
used to do.
don't know if she went down the slides on East Gloucester. I tore up a lot of suits. Great choice.
Okay, Maria, can we vote, please?
Mayor Verda,
Yes.
Ms. Watson, Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
and Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Honored, and I know I have big shoes to fill. I'm gonna give it my best shot, and I'm honored to move into my next role. So thank you.
And it'll be the one time at a school committee meeting that you get to leave. Not feel bad about it.
So I get to leave.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Please,
Thank you so
Probably
much.
say you're welcome to stay if you want to, but
not yet.
it's a beautiful evening.
Take advantage.
Yeah, take advantage. I'm gonna go, but I will be here many long nights in the future,
We
I'm
look
sure.
forward to that.
I look forward to it too. Thank you.
There's a past girl who's viewing, and that person could go to if they wanted.
Thank you.
So continue on with the,
We're going to continue on with deliberations on educational issues. We will have the school improvement plans for O'Malley Innovation Middle School and Foster.
can you present? Do you want me to present? What's better for you?
It's better for me if you present.
Okay, can we just get there?
So all of you have both the full plan and the presentation also? Great. Okay, great.
Begin while I.
Yeah, it's okay. Right, thanks for having me, and Maura's here to join me as she's my tag team partner on implementation for the most part of the plan. So we are choosing, as I think I've talked about before, to sort of stay a course. This will be we're entering our third year in sustainable improvement. And what we've tried to do over the last couple of years is streamline our focus further and further. So while there's still a lot of items in this plan, I feel like this year we crafted a good direction that will allow us to really stay very focused and stay on target with some initiatives that will help our kids grow in their performance or achievement, their community attachment, et cetera. So would you go to the first slide, please? So this, I guess we would call an infographic in tech world. I created this really when I was working with staff on the whole thing, just because, you know, the teachers as a whole don't look at school improvement plans nearly as frequently or as in-depth as the instructional leadership team, and certainly not as administration does. So I wanted to make sure, and this is one of the things I think is really important for O'Malley in terms of sustainability, that we're always going back to remembering why we're doing what we're doing and how the dots connect. So, so we are in sustainable improvement. There are 4 turnaround practices. Our plan is based from the sustainable improvement plan initially on the 4 turnaround practices. And as of this year, we created the 3 focus areas that represent those. So we've got professional collaboration, which involves shared leadership, accountability, some other things, improving student learning, which last year was focused on literacy, this year adds math and some pedagogical pieces, and student engagement, which is focused on making connections with kids and having clear expectations for them. So this shows you how our 3 focus areas break up into 4 goals for us. And then we'll talk about the details of each of those 4 goals. Can you go for it and we'll go through each. So professional collaboration is the first focus area, and our goal under that is that we have clear focus core values, which we've established over the last year and a half as still sales, expanding from just community into academics and bonding that all together. Our mission and vision is still a little bit tied to some of the past efforts that we've done. So that's going to be one of our areas to craft. And in order to do that, we feel that it's really important to have a clear instructional focus. So you'll see as we get into the green goals in the center, that there are some very specific items that are going to guide our articulating a statement of instructional focus. It's important that all of us can articulate it like this. Just we have these 3 topics: professional collaboration, improving student learning, and student engagement. Those are our 3. Everyone should know the cold. Parents, kids, staff, getting into our instructional focus, we should all know very simply what we're focused on. So it's a really important, like a mission and vision, that we have that as a very simple statement that we all understand and is clear. So that's gonna be our first task, is establishing what is our instructional focus based on what we've been working on for the couple of years and what our efforts are going toward this year. How do we articulate that in a way that keeps it at the top of our heads? After that, of course, it's assessing our progress with it. So we need to know, are we staying true to the focus that we have attached to? You know, does this, really interesting, shiny professional development camp that's come along, is it going to be value added for the instructional focus that's going to help our kids? And we always have to stay on track and on target with that. We also, in terms of the collaboration piece, we've been spending a lot of time over the last couple of years in our student review teams, which are meeting times when the house teams collaborate. It's a whole child type of environment. We've been using protocols and we've been working on student success plans. Now it's time to take that next step into grade level meetings. So we also want to make sure that we're using our time as efficiently as possible, systemic approach, using protocols, determining what data we're going to look at, how people bring data to those discussions. So when we're planning curriculum, it's all focused and systematic. And then third, the last piece of this is that the current data teams, which meet fall, winter, spring, will expand into the grade level curriculum conversations with data use there. We're also adding our special educators formally into the data team process and our ELL teachers as well, so that we've got all the stakeholders on the team who contribute meaningfully to what we want to do to help all of our students.
We have questions. Are we asking now or waiting till the end?
So can you and share and unpack that?
No, it doesn't matter to me. I just didn't know what the process was.
You can answer questions.
Okay. So I just have a quick question on the focus.
Yeah.
So what type of oversight will there be, if any, in the classrooms to ensure that all the teachers have that focus and that focus is the same? Are there going to be walkthroughs or peer teacher to teacher or support from the coaches or anything like that?
Yeah.
What is going to assure that everyone knows what that focus is and is consistent?
Great question. When we get to the next section, there's actually some actions around that.
Okay, I read it, but I didn't think I saw that.
That's okay.
Okay.
So the intent is for,
PLCs, is that what it was?
we have, the PLCs are basically working with the student review teams and adding the PLC structure to grade level meetings is part of it. So having a process that the teachers are using is the first part. But the other piece that you're alluding to is who's giving the feedback. So
Right.
that's where the assistant principals, Laura and I, will be in, and our goal is to give feedback specific to the instructional focus and the actions in the plan. And so that is, and not just feedback, observation, evaluation wise, but support. So how do we get to have those conversations where we're collaborating to say, I saw this, have you tried that? and asking questions that keep bringing people back to the instructional focus and the strategies we're using and the PD that we provide, et cetera.
And learning best practices from that process. right?
Exactly, exactly. We've talked informally, there are some peer observation pieces in place. You asked about that as well. We're not at a place yet where we want to jump to, let's put a formal peer observation process in place. That there is an interest to do that on staff. We've talked about it in the instructional leadership team. We've talked about it on site council. And it's one of those, first we want to make sure we define what our high quality best practices are. Then we want to have a more formal process. So when people are going into classrooms, you know, we've defined what we're looking for. And we have some models that we can provide to say, yeah, go here to see this particular best practice that's working well.
And I ask, because I know when we're trying something new, it's good to have a strong start, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I just,
Right.
my question is geared more to, okay, we're gonna do this.
Right.
What's hitting the ground and how's that gonna work? So thank you.
Sure. Next slide. Oh, sure.
And this, I think this was sort of embedded in what you were saying, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. So, you know, I guess where are the best practices coming from? I mean, how are you determining? Right, there's, you know, so we're going in and everyone wants, you want everyone to have the same focus and the same, which makes a ton of sense. And where's that? Where's the origin?
Do you mind if we go through the next slide or two and then I can speak to that?
No
Because
problem.
that's where the content is and how we're developing it.
Great.
That may, then you might have a follow-up question, but that might be more helpful.
That sounds great.
All right, so the second section is the second goal. It's cohesive instructional focus, which again, we've articulated in our collaboration roles. But here's where it starts to lay out in terms of the practices that we're gonna integrate and where it's coming from. So the first one, refining our school-wide structures and systems for UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, and culturally responsive teaching practices, which is the model Zaretta Hammond practice that's being implemented at the high school. We have done professional development on both of those things, and actually James and I have done some discussing of how they dovetail. So what we want to do is go back. These are both research-based practices that are proven successful. And there are ways for us to provide curriculum in any subject or practices in any subject that we can create some universal, maybe a bad word because it's already in there, but some consistent practices across the school where we have common language, how we go about things. So that's the pedagogical piece that we'll be looking for. What does it look like from UDL when you engage a student, or from Hammond when you ignite a student? And what does that look like in a classroom? And when I come in, hey, I saw this is great, ask some questions about that. Then in this section, we go into literacy. So this year we had a literacy review committee that Maura ran in a spectacular manner with the practice that will follow for math as well. And so they looked at curriculum alignment with the standards, and they began researching best practices and programs and resources meet the standard of research-based or evidence-based. So it's from from What Works Clearinghouse and some other, they're vetted practices and products that other schools have found successful. They're meeting student needs, they're aligned with the standards, they're going to keep us on track. Do you want to speak to where you're going next with this, with the pilot and things like that? So go ahead.
We've used a lot of the resources that the state has put out. They've done a great job over the past couple of years of really helping to meld how you go through a curriculum review process. This Department of Education has created a website called Curate, where they're vetting all kinds of products for multiple content areas and rating them on, effectiveness with students, culturally relevant materials, how engaging they are, if they're incorporating best practices, the whole gamut of things that you're looking for. And we've coupled that with EdReports, which is a national database which does the same thing. So we're going through that whole process, and we've identified 4 potential resources that we think meet the criteria that we've set forward, that we've worked with the district and the state on, and also have aligned with the priorities of the curriculum review team. The curriculum review team has identified about 10 non-negotiables, of things we really need to see in the resources that we're looking at. So we're in the process now of doing a deep dive into those 4 specific resources with the goal to narrow it to 2 to hopefully do some trial in the fall.
So if I'm understanding, Curie and Ed Reports helps you sort of review some curriculum that you might want to try. And so the 4 that you've narrowed it down to, do they intersect well with what's being piloted at the elementary schools and what's already happening at the high school?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and so that where there's like a very clear, cohesive.
There's a lot of alignment.
Okay.
Some of them may be the same products, not necessarily, but we're making sure that that transition both into the middle school and into the high school is critical. So the more seamless that we can make it.
Yeah, I'm just, I recognize there's a ton of change happening on every level, right, in terms of curriculum. So just want to make sure that we're all aligned.
Can I mention one thing on that? I also want to mention that Maura has attended the elementary ELA pilot meetings, and in fact saw all of the deliberations and has been part of, very much involved with that. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they will select the same curriculum that the elementary is, but she's been very much involved with that process. It's been really great to have her. She's connected with our coaches at the elementary level too. So I'm not at all worried about that. Where in the past we might have had a disconnect, they're right on it. So.
It's really important that we design a K-12 continuum, but even whether it's 6 different products, 3 different products, whatever that is, there has to be regular collaboration, coordination with what's going on below and above. Otherwise, it's too disjointed for the kids.
Just from my perspective, from your perspective, especially with, the budget this year, which will put more efficient into the operating budget. That sort of coordination you just talked about, and Greg just talked about, absolutely could not have happened, especially this year, but almost for any year with the structure we had in O'Malley. So, having more efficient and more in that position, okay, allows for that. And that's, as you described, it's crucial. Yeah.
And along those lines, Greg, when you created this curriculum mapping philosophy that we still have, I think. Remember years and years ago, we started with the curriculum mapping to make sure that all the elementary
We did.
schools, didn't that lead into elementary and then high school levels as well? I thought.
We ended up, yes, we did it at each level, but it has remained somewhat discrete at each level. And this is the first really sustained coordinated connection between the two. It's really exciting to have Maura and Lynn and her staff working on this and working together. So it's good. So though we were doing it, it was generally
Not as good
independent.
as it is now.
It was independent and they really have a good process going.
So just following up on that, I'm sorry, just so, because we did hear so much about the process to get us to wit and wisdom at the elementary schools and how, the huge amount of work that went into pilot that. So now you're at the point of you have 4 curriculum, you want to narrow to 2, and then would the piloting phase be this coming school year with the hope of implementing the following year, or I'm just wondering about time.
Well, we are working out the timeline. I think a lot of that is going to be impacted by what resources we do select. And I've been meeting with all of the representatives from all the different resources that we're looking at to learn from their experiences about how it's worked in other districts. Most of the people that we're talking to are also working with many other districts in the area. And so they've been able to demonstrate what's worked for them and what timelines they've used. They all have slightly different timelines. So I think it's really going to depend on where we land in June, how we want to move forward. But I'd like to get it in the hands of everybody by the middle of the next school year, if that's fiscally and academically appropriate.
And just because we heard, from the elementary process, we heard, you can't start a new thing all at once, that we had to have gradations, right? So I just wonder at O'Malley, since it's one school, but obviously much bigger than an individual. I mean, are you able, once you make that decision, to sort of implement, or is it also gonna be gradations?
It's bigger, but it's department based, so that helps us, whereas every single elementary teacher teaches literacy or English language arts, everybody teaches literacy. But English language arts specifically, you know, at the middle school level, you've got a much smaller number of people, so it is easier to get everybody together, do the training, and have that dialogue and collaboration to move it forward. Ideally, like Maura said, we're hoping for mid-year for terms 2, 3, and 4, but it will depend on, you know, what the resources are and what's involved with the training and implementation.
Thank you.
And which also means that as I think we'll get into, you know, if they're starting in the math process as well, you could never, ever do both at the same time in the elementary schools. I mean, we do, you know, platoon in many elementary schools, so it's a little bit different, but you really couldn't. Or in the middle school, but you have a factor.
So the final piece with regard to literacy is that we, well, there are 2 pieces. This year we started coordinating and building common language. We used 2-column notes across the school, across all subjects. Next year we'll be taking on the next, we don't know what that is yet, but there'll be another practice, evidence-based, research-based, effective that applies to all subject areas with regard to literacy. And finally, the second year of our literacy intervention class, which is the tier 2 support, which we showed last time at the mid-year report, where our kids have made a significant amount of growth as compared to kids who aren't taking that class. So getting that in place for the next the round, you know, increasing the expertise of the person running the class, the resources we're using, et cetera, to continue to expand that. And then we switched to math. And math really looks like literacy looked this year. So it's starting from scratch again with the alignment to the standards, taking a look at you know, which skills are across other subject areas, like the ones that I've mentioned in the plan are the problem solving, critical thinking. Those practices apply to most subjects, specifically the sciences and some things more directly. So it'll be a question of, you know, where can we most directly apply practice of mathematical standards and focus areas and thinking skills that will help move forward all of our kids' mathematics skills, whether it's math class or not. We'll be looking at the unit revision, the scope and sequence, the same way we did with literacy. We do have a wonderful math intervention teacher who has accepted the position. She's got a lot of experience, and so she's enthusiastic about coming on board, and that will help us. It's always great to have, you want your best teacher in an elementary class, right? So so it will be great to have her as a strong person in that, working with Laura, working with me, building that tier 2 program the way we did with the literacy intervention. And then part of this that you alluded to, and well, actually a couple of you did with that accountability piece. So having for the administrative team a schedule that is consistent. We're in class, we're doing observations, and the observations are specific to whatever it is we're working on. What are the fine points of the instructional focus and our values and the things that we've agreed on? What did we just do a professional development on that we want to see implemented on? What practices are we sharing that are intended to be school-wide and giving very specific feedback on that and providing support if people need further instruction and support resources to do that implementation. That's something that's been very hard for us. Having Laura has been helpful, having Ryan Odessa join us as a third assistant principal for a time has been helpful, and that's what we want. We want to build that in to get a routine down so that we can make sure that we're where we need to be, that we're not working reactively to all of the, the lovable craziness of middle school, but are also able to spend the time that's needed in the classrooms to really be not just visible, but be effective and be able to coach people. Because that really is the biggest part of an administrator's role, is not the evaluation supervision top down. It's the, how do I support you? Here's what I see. I have some questions. What questions do you have? what can I do to help you grow with what we're trying to do?
So you brought up evaluations, and I had a question on that. So during the evaluation process going into next year, has that happened yet when the teachers pick their professional goal and their personal goal?
No, they do that in the fall.
They do that in the fall.
Yeah.
Do you see maybe a recommendation from your team that the professional goal maybe has some points that are in what you're
Yeah,
presenting
we
to us
actually,
tonight? So
we
that
actually
it,
did that this year. Yeah, so this year, one of the things that we did was create some draft SMART goals that, we offered up, went through, people chose or didn't choose them, but I always guide the faculty to craft their goals in alignment with our identified actions. So whatever it is we're trying to accomplish, they need to contribute. And I think we've spent a good amount of time over these last few months getting feedback from the staff about our 3 focus areas and the practices that we've got in and what they're thinking we need to work on, what they would like to see in it. So there's a whole articulation of ideas that they have for the kinds of PD they might want, or the ways to use time, or how we can move forward with interdisciplinary kinds of things in the building that will help move our literacy across the school forward, things like that. So the idea of like generating those conversations together and then putting the broad strokes of a plan that is an umbrella for them to fit those things in individually allows them, when they come in the fall, to feel hopefully that, they've got some options that came from them that fit, because we're all going in the same direction, and that's essential. Can you go back one? Yeah.
3, right?
Right,
that one?
Yeah, so the third important goal is still under improving student learning. This one is more discrete. It's related to common formative and summative assessments and progress monitoring. This is where the data teams come in, and where we have some common assessments, primarily summative. And we want to make sure that they're common everywhere. We want to make sure that in addition to the summative assessments, we have formative assessments where check-ins along the way before you get to the big assessment that determines whether the students learned what they're supposed to learn in the unit. And then continuing to use the STAR 360 math and reading assessment in the fall, winter, spring to help give us the information moving toward, like I said earlier, involving EL teachers, involving special ed teachers, involving that data to really take that next step towards being able to think about individual kids and their plan of program.
That me?
That's you. Right for now. Thanks.
It's much of this.
So the student engagement it really has 2 prongs. It's really making sure that our approach to conduct challenges is consistent, the kids have clear expectations, staff have clear expectations, everyone knows the process. And then the second part of that is really where I think you really make inroads, which is the community piece. So focusing on, this year we started regular community meetings, expanding that, making them more consistent, building in different kinds of team building activities that the kids can do to feel connected. Moving toward restorative practices, continuing to move in that direction as opposed to punitive. This year, we added the PACE program so that we were able to have kids out of community to serve a consequence when necessary and keep them in school and have them do reflective work, meet with a counselor, be here, get their schoolwork done instead of being home on the couch playing video games, which is not helpful for anybody. Although I did recently just read that video games are good for your brain. But different tangent. So,
Moderation.
yeah, not social media, but video games. At any rate, and then doing a better job at sharing data and talking about data. So we've had for a couple of years a referral form that we use. It's just a simple Google form that it's similar to the Swiss system that was used in PBIS. But it's, if we get the graphs, we get the data, we can look at the patterns of what kinds of infractions were experienced, what the responses have been, what's effective, what's not. What we haven't This year, we did a really good job in almost all of the houses of getting those referrals in there. Sometimes it felt like too many notifications on days. But, you know, we have it in there now. The next step is really making sure we're doing regular, you know, once a month, the house teams are looking at, okay, what kinds of things are we struggling with? Thing that comes up most is cell phones. So that's going to be a big one. We have a very clear policy, but it's very challenging to enforce consistently on a regular basis. Kids are attached to their phones, and it's a problem. So I envision, given the amount of feedback from staff on that, that we'll be putting together a subcommittee next year potentially to take a look at that policy to see if we need to make changes on it, or, you know, at least for the start, do better communication with families about the expectations, et cetera.
When you're looking at that policy, you discussed also the connection between iPhones and, you know, watches, smartwatches,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yes,
Would that be also reviewed as well?
yes, yes. And I think there's nothing about smartwatches in the plan at this point.
Yeah.
So there's the question of, you know, how that plays in and that kind of thing. So,
If anybody needs to get in touch with their children, they can contact the office, right? There's no need.
yeah, well, that's the thing nowadays, you know, since more than a year ago, we have a phone in every classroom that dials out. So there's not a safety issue around needing to access a phone to get in touch with anybody from out of the building. You know, so we need to do a little bit of PR around it, being very convenient for families to text their kids during the day, but not the most helpful thing with regard to preventing distraction in during the school day. Because there's too much, you know,
Big phone pocket things, they have to put them in the front of the class.
yeah, yeah.
That's simple.
Kids have all kinds of reasons why they
Writing
don't want to do that. So that's the place, those are the kinds of things. And there are some good options.
You see at some workplaces, you have a place to put your phone, so it's not with you while you're working.
Right.
It's a locked, locker or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, they're supposed to be in their lockers or in their homerooms. Supposed to be is critical in that sentence, so. We have some work to do.
I guess I'm just curious, I worked for a district in the past that allowed students to have their phones on them.
Yep.
Due to safety issues. I'm curious, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm curious. If
All
we-
kids or some?
All. So like, in the case of an active shooter, they found that it was helpful for students to have access to their cell phones, for example. And so I'm all for at the beginning, when you walk into the class, you put it on the desk. I guess I'm just wondering if you see any reason why a student should have their phone on them in the building.
It's a hard question for a tech person. Because I've kind of turned a corner on this. Phones are great, but they're computers. And I think that over the last several years, we have turned not a good corner into there is too much, I don't want to use the word addiction because that's a very technical word. There's too much attachment to them, and there is too much, there's an inability for adults and kids to leave it over there. And it is impacting. The kids cannot, some of the kids cannot put it down, put it away, have it out of their reach. They don't even want to put it in a bin or in a pocket because someone else's fingerprints might have been on there, or they might touch it, but it's more, they just don't want to be away from it. So I don't anticipate it being an easy transition if we were to go to a ban cell phone policy. It's also hard to police, but to your question, I don't see any need for kids to have them. In fact, when we talk about any kind of, God forbid, crisis, because of the way we would want to do emergency service connection and a reunification and all of that, it's typically considered to be detrimental for kids to have a communication device because they're sending out information from wherever their little place is. It's not necessarily accurate, and it doesn't, like, parents really need to be in touch, listen to the superintendent, the message he's sending out, or the police chief or the fire chief or whoever it is, the mayor, who's ever getting that communication out, and follow that direction. We don't want parents all showing up at the school for their child, because then we aren't able to carry out the emergency procedures we need to. We do have some kids for whom the anxiety level, that there's a question back and forth about does having the phone help them feel more anxious because they have that connection with a parent or relative, something's going on at home, et cetera. And there are certain situations in which we might, okay, bring your phone to your counselor in the morning. If at any time during the day you need to call or talk to or communicate with, you go to the counselor and you're able to do that, as opposed to having it with you on your person where you're looking at it, trying to check it, run to the bathroom every 5 minutes. So it's gonna be a complicated conversation.
Well, it's a district-wide conversation. We just talked to the elementary school principals who said the exact same thing. So it's a district-wide conversation that I think we all have to be on the same page about.
Sure.
And in my work around technology, doing therapy with parents, it's like it's gonna get harder before it gets better.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
It
Like,
is.
we just have to be okay with the fact that kids are gonna hate it, parents might hate it, but our job is to educate kids,
Right.
and those are distracting.
Yeah.
And it's making it almost impossible.
And that the
Educate.
kids don't agree that they're distracted. So
Right.
that's the first hurdle, is gonna be the dialogue with the kids to say, you know, try and help them understand the impact of having the phone. I know that when my daughter was in college and going out to dinner with friends, et cetera, they used to have this deal where you had to put your phone in the middle of the table, and whoever touched their phone first had to pay for everybody. That was a really good incentive, so we need to come up with some things like that for our kids. I don't know what we're making them pay for, but seriously, to, get them, because
Like, if they give up their
truly-
phone, there's an incentive.
Yeah,
right?
they truly don't agree. And they believe they're necessary, they believe they need them for safety. And they're just used to having them. It's not, there are campaigns called Wait Until 8, where, people are trying to get families not to give the phone to a kid until they get to 8th grade. It's too late. This day and age, they've had that phone for forever, either just using their parents' phone or having their own phone, so.
We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Let's talk about learning. I know it's related, but
Yeah.
let's go with.
I just have one quick question,
Sure.
especially on the higher levels, when it comes to computers, how are students in the classroom, are they using laptops in classrooms? And that, essentially, like, I can text through I can check, there are limitations on the laptops that they're using, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know at the high school, our kids don't have access to chat. So the district has it shut down, and that's the same at.
That's the difference between bring your own device policy,
Yeah.
or bring your own laptop.
Oh,
And what
that's
we're
right.
doing with the Chromebooks, they're much more control about
Yeah.
what they can view and like no chat, no messaging. those sorts of things.
Other questions?
So what we're hoping you're seeing today, both from O'Malley and also from JHS, is not a lot of new, or things you've seen before. And you should hold us accountable to that, so the budget priorities conversation versus this conversation, budget priorities and conversation, or presentation, I should say, the beginning of January, and now they're real threads. It doesn't change every 6 months. Okay, in fact, it only changes every couple of years, that sort of thing. So, and then also connections between, as you asked about, which I think were great questions, connections across the grade levels as well. So that's something we'll look at.
When you're looking, or I kept in mind the fact that you said this is year 3. And there's been almost 3 years of pandemic, so
I know.
it must feel like year 1, like over and over again. In a lot of ways, a little bit. So I guess I'm curious, when you look at the different goals, is there any that feel particularly hard to sort of manage just with?
So far, the hardest one to manage is for the administrators to get into classrooms regularly and give that feedback. So that is the one that, we keep on there, and we have to have a plan for it, and we have to do that well. Because without doing that, we're not gonna be able to help them. But I don't love the word accountability around that. It's really about providing the support and the follow-up. We do a professional development, something that's critical. And if we're not able to go in and say, hey, you've done a great job with that, or, or just give some more specific feedback to how it's implemented and how kids are being impacted by the changes we're making, then you can't go that next step further. And that's where you don't get the sustainability. So
And what are the barriers, or what have the barriers been? so far?
it's been conduct and time,
And COVID,
and staffing, sorry,
and COVID.
and COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference in the level of frequency of behavior since COVID.
So one thing we're doing, which you don't know of yet, because we haven't given you an update on ESSER funding, is just a couple weeks ago, as we were, continuing to sort of adjust that, is Lynn mentioned just briefly, one of our assistant principals went on maternity leave for a little while. And so we were able to, Lynn was able to identify a man by the name of Brian Dessa to come into a place, on an interim basis. With ESSER funding, we kept him on for the rest of this year, to the end of the school year, but then just recently made the decision to have him on for another year for ESSER funding. And that, just helps on many levels. You've got one assistant principal per grade at this point, for next year. It allows some of the things that we're talking about, we're talking tonight, to focus on. It just provides a level of support that, O'Malley staff, students really need, on a variety of different levels, because our assistant principals plays their role so broad. So that's going to be a really, Brian's done a very good job. He's a very positive influence. Very positive person of energy. I think really great middle school energy and connecting with students, and also has been very supportive of staff too. So that's, I think, pretty significant. I know it's a very significant to have him continue on.
Two quick questions. How many teachers are at O'Malley and how many of your staff can evaluate?
We have
What's the ratio?
64 teachers. Okay. Teachers, counselors, et cetera, that are in the evaluation unit. And right now, with Brian, we have 5.
So 5 evaluating staff. Okay.
We will, Brian did not evaluate this year because he was temporary, so.
But
So-
he's able to next year?
Right, so before this year, you had 3.
Yeah, before this year, we had 3.
So
So
it
it
makes
makes
4
4.
or 5. That's not bad. And my final question is, so this is great. But I'd like to see a mid-year follow-up as opposed to getting an end-of-year report. How
Sure.
did that go? Because it might, so I'm just wondering if we can put this on the calendar, like after
Yeah.
the new year.
I think that's
after
gonna
the
be
Christmas
important because this is an opportunity that, believe me, this is an unusual opportunity and I so appreciate and support on it. And it will give us the opportunity to really focus on the community, the positive community building impact that is essential to helping with the conduct. We don't make turnarounds in conduct by just doing punitive or even just trying restorative practice in a reaction. We do it by being proactive. So having them aligned, one with each grade level, really brings that focus into we're going to be a community. And then the flip side of that is giving that really specific frequent feedback. So, we have to have, we need to show that it didn't make any difference, even though we did it all, or it made a huge difference, which is what I'm banking on by mid-year.
And then also, on June 22nd, Lynn and Laura will be back.
The 8th.
June 8th?
Yeah.
June 8th, sorry, so our next meeting, to give they give a mid-year report on student learning, and they're gonna, which was the first time we really done that in, I don't know how long. And then next meeting, they'll do the end of the year, follow-up for the end of the year, learning networks, which will be the first time ever that will happen. So yes, and.
You can go.
So tell me if I'm wrong. So I heard from some parents who were at academic excellence tonight, 5th grade. And one question they had, and this is part of the new process, they were told, or they were under the impression that the period times are going from 45 minutes, from an hour and a half to 45 minutes.
We're not sure yet. So that is, the goal is to create a schedule where teachers will teach 5 45-minute blocks instead of 4 60-minute blocks. But it's not, I'm still working out the details. We have, thankfully, to all of you, the staffing that we can add to do that. I still am at a couple of crossroads with, even with that staffing, can I make it work? And obviously, if I can't make that schedule shift, we're not gonna bring on that extra staffing. But that is potentially.
That is potentially.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
You heard from an hour to 45 minutes, not an hour and a half.
Okay, right, so that must be true.
Well, the academic classes would go from 60 to 40 to 45. The specialist classes would go from 80
I
to
think it was the
45.
specialist classes that I was hearing about, and they were.
The other piece on that, though, is, I mean, we don't know all these trade-offs, here, right, is that they would have fewer students, because you should explain this perhaps, because
That time, either the class sizes will be smaller, that's the objective. Smaller class sizes and the opportunity for example, when special educators and or EL personnel to meet with content area teachers. Yes, there are some subject areas for whom it will be a challenge to move from 80 to 45. Most other districts have 45 and there are many successes with that. So it's part of its change. There are also some of the specialist subjects plus a lot of our special ed area personnel that are dying for a smaller block. A shorter block, that 80 minutes is too long for academic support, for example. So, there, as Ben mentioned, trade-offs. I've never been a schedule in the world that made everybody happy. So that's.
I think it was the specialist makers blocks is what I was told. That was
The investigative science or, yeah.
So to follow on that, I know that you've been passionate, and I think, knowing the schedule at O'Malley and feedback I've heard from different parents and having my son be there, what resources do you need to make the schedule shift? Because we need to make sure it's one of those things that make everything kind of work. So if you find in this scheduling thing that you need more resources, is it another teacher for another specialist or whatever to make it work? I just think at this point, we really need to go forward with that strategy that we believe will be help everything else.
You've been extraordinarily supportive, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know we're going through.
I
budget
should,
process.
but don't have an answer to that tonight.
Yeah, no, I know, but we're going through the budget process now, but we have the mayor on the committee, and so maybe there's, if there's a need, we certainly want to
It
explore
may
how we
be.
could accommodate. additional
It comes down to the math of, do I have enough bodies to put in each block so that kids have something meaningful to do? Especially here with our kids' performance level, I don't have the luxury of, setting up studies where somebody can supervise so that there's a place for a group of kids to go. Our kids need to be engaged in learning every minute that they're there. So that's where I'm at with moving what can fit together and work.
So my only comment also is, these priorities, will you communicate out to families?
Yes.
About this in a
Yes.
digestible way so that they kind of in the fall have this, not necessarily shift, but kind of slash where the focus is and what work is going on and all that, so.
Yes, I think, one of the benefits of having the 3 focus areas and also going to the articulated instructional focus is that's easier to communicate, here's who we are, here's what we're about, here's what we're working on, here's what's important.
And as you're getting to repetition is really important. Every way we can, every opportunity we can, to repeat those focus areas, repeat those priorities. We'll come in for a parent conference, people come in for, night of excellence, people come in for, but just making sure it's clear, easy to communicate, and then repeat it again and again. There's no- To take on ownership. Thank you, Maura. Thank you, Lynn.
So we have a motion to accept the improvement plan.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Great job, a lot of work.
Yeah, thank you.
Maria, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Verga,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
and Ms. Prince.
Yes. Great work.
Next up, we have Principal Cook.
The presentation, we were late in finalizing it. Mr. Cook may have gotten, did you give me the actual school improvement plan?
I have the report for this evening. So usually I've done this in late June or August. So this is a little early and I thought it would be important for us to not delay Lynn being able to present, but because of some feedback from our ILT, some of the complexity of departments and things we have at high school, getting feedback from the our instructional leadership team and the site-based council, we're still integrating.
So what we'd like to do tonight is give you essentially a summary of the plan, a summary of it, like the presentation. And then and as James finalized it, and James and I communicated after the fact on scheduling this is that, and he's asked in the future, because of the way the high school operates, as he's done in the past, the superintendent should request that he gives the plan due later toward the end of the year. That's on me, not knowing that, not thinking that through properly. So but we'd like to give you the presentation tonight. Okay.
It's essentially the same. I mean, it's
Yeah, the
it's
plan, the written
everything.
plan
It's
will
just
get
in-
later and they can vote on it then.
Okay.
That's all, yeah. Yeah, so not, but this way, presentation, then you'll see the whole written plan, and that way you can vote on it.
So you mean the end of this school year, not
End-
the
end
end
of
of
this
next?
school year,
Okay,
end
I
of
thought
this
you meant
school
the end of the
year,
school year,
end
I'm
of
like,
this
that's too late.
Let me put it in very clear terms. From now on, I'll ask the high school principal, James Cook, to have his school improvement plan presented at the last meeting of the school year. Okay, which is what he's done in the past, and this year, I did not schedule it properly.
Sure.
So that's on me.
But it's important that we do it tonight is what I, when I noticed this and so on, because I think you'll see the complementary elements. And it is in the plan that you approved last year is in this form, same form you're going to see tonight.
Better fun. This year.
No, same.
Okay.
No, I was so conscientious about this idea of keeping a focus and taking the next steps of the focus, even the design of the plan. As Lynn had explained, some of the integration of different elements that goes into creating a school improvement plan when there's a sustainable improvement plan required. This slide is just to remind folks that this plan integrates not only the expectation of a school improvement plan with the expectation of a sustainable improvement plan, but also the school growth plan required by NEAS, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. And we had a successful accreditation visit earlier this fall. I can't believe it's the same year. Somehow that seems some other time period, but it's just October this year. Yeah.
That was this year. That was this year.
That was this
That's
year.
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
I know. Exactly. So this plan it takes the next steps with the that integrated plan that I presented to you last year around this time. So the Unified School Improvement Plan is 2 priority areas. So like Lynn talking about 3 areas, we have two areas. First area is is really the instructional focus, and you heard Lynn talk about that as well. So at Gloucester High School, the instructional focus that we have is brain-based, culturally responsive instruction. To break it down to what that looks like in the classroom every day, with a lesson, a teacher ignites the learning. They then chunk the learning into digestible pieces, no more than 12 to 15 minutes. It's things we know about the brain and what the brain can take in. The third phase, you're processing that, you're actively processing it, what's called chewing on it, right? You've got to make it your own. You can't just listen to the presentation, you've got to do something with it. And then the end of the class has sort of the recap, the review of that. So ignite, chunk to review is the instructional model. And as Lynn has presented, the why of that is so students can do meaningful analysis, evaluation, and creation, right? The instruction moves them to be able to analyze, to evaluate what they're looking at, to make something with it, to create with it. And to do that, they then can achieve our vision of the graduate. The vision of the graduate is, again, we've made that digestible. Students have foundational knowledge, and they have the communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills to be productive citizens. That's what we want from our kids. So by using this culturally responsive model, where we get kids to higher order thinking, and we get them to be able to communicate, collaborate, and problem solve to be citizens with us in the world moving forward. That's our first goal. Second goal is to increase social emotional learning. High schools overall are late to this idea that we need to engage in both explicit and implicit social emotional instruction. So students are getting better at self-awareness, self-management, decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Those are the 5 CASEL social emotional learning areas. And we're not just teaching our content, right? To put it another term, right? We're not just teaching math, but students are getting better at self-management. They're getting better at making good decisions. They're getting better at relationships and being aware of themselves socially, right? Even while they're learning math or science or down in our shops throughout the school. The reason for that, like what we get out of social emotional learning then is we get the student wellness, better student attendance, better transition from the middle school to the high school, and a more equitable and inclusive school climate and culture. Those are the pieces. So you'll see that what used to be lots of disparate things comes together under the umbrella of social emotional learning. And I think it's really important that Lynn talked about practicing not just the the administrators. We focus on these plans sometimes, but they also need to be worded in ways that people can remember. And we say social emotional learning an awful lot, right? We say that phrase, but what we mean by that is the self-awareness, the self-management, decision-making, right? Relationship building, and the social awareness. And that's what we mean when we say social emotional learning, that they're getting better in each of those areas. So that's what we're looking to do with this plan. So then breaking that down, as you heard from Lynn's plan as well, as the plan from O'Malley breaks this down. We will continue the implementation of the PD, our PLC work, peer evaluator, peer feedback, and evaluator feedback. And I will agree right now, before anybody asks a question, I'll agree with Lynn that the most difficult thing to do over the COVID years has been to get into classrooms. The last 2 months have been awesome. I've been in more classrooms over the last 2 months than just able to do and managing the different adjustments and crises and so on we've had to. It's been so good being in classrooms and working with teachers, giving feedback, talking with them about their lessons, focusing on something that they can't see on their own, but having another pair of eyes in the room allows them to work on some particular aspect of their practice and make it, and grow in that area. That's what I'm looking forward to next year. I'm already looking forward to next year to extend this that part of it. So what we're moving here, so last year where I talked about, designing or like planning and that sort of thing, this year you'll see, I've tried to underline those verbs. We're applying the awareness and knowledge of brain-based and culture to relationships and lessons, right? We're now applying that next year, and folks are getting feedback on that. They're working with their peers on that. Because we've done the PD, the concepts are largely in place, but we've got to refine it. We've got to figure out what it looks in different lessons at different parts of the year. Actually working on fostering the relationships that create learning partnerships and fully implementing that Ignite Chunk to Review lesson model that I talked about a couple of minutes ago. And again, getting feedback from peers, getting feedback from evaluators, honing things with peers in the PLC work, and then going deeper in particular areas. So for example, when you're igniting learning, what does that look like in a science classroom? What does that look like in an English classroom? We have these concepts now, we have this common instructional model, but there are differences in different disciplines. And that's kind of the nature of the specialization at the high school. And we need to become great in each of those areas. So the next slide, this is about the higher order thinking part of it. So using that instructional model, moving towards higher order thinking in all our classes. One of the things we noticed when we did our review as part of the Sustainable Improvement Plan, I guess 4 years ago, is there's strong evidence of higher order thinking in our more advanced classes and in our upper level classes, and we needed to do a better job of that with our freshmen and our sophomores. And so they're able to create, evaluate, create, apply their learning. So what that means is strengthening performance assessments. So it's good the test will and the quiz will evaluate their foundational knowledge, but then the performance assessment is what can they do with that knowledge? How can they apply it to some problem solving, which is right in our vision of the graduate. So we're going to strengthen our performance assessment, strengthen the daily lessons that lead students to the performance assessments, and then strengthen the access and support that help students with different learning challenges, access the daily lessons, and do well on the performance assessment. So we have these things in place, and now we're looking to reflect and strengthen these areas.
I mean, what a performance assessment is.
So a performance assessment might be, so I was in the auto shop the other day, and Mr. Mashel had the students, he had given them some instruction on how to take apart this engine and the process, and then kind of gave the challenge to the kids after doing the instruction of, okay, now you're going to do it, you're going to perform, and I'm going to assess how well you do that, which was not just the knowledge that the students needed to do that effectively and put things in places where they could be used again, right? They were good at taking it apart, but can you put it back together? It has to be done in a kind of neat way. But they also had to collaborate with each other to do it. So it was that the workplace knowledge that is also being evaluated.
So in that situation, I love that you look at me and think vocational. So that's awesome for project based, right? But English class.
Sure, yeah,
Like,
English.
how do you do that? And I'm curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, no, it's great. So if I'm
Don't know what it
teaching
is.
rhetoric and argument, right? So I'm teaching students how to make an argument effectively. There might be a real world problem, a social justice issue, a real world problem that the students are then going to apply learning about pathos, logos, and ethos, and not just know those definitions, though they do, right? That's part of it. Not just be able to analyze or break down Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech and show the components of it, but then do one themselves and deliver that speech to their peers, in which they show that they're using the strategies they've learned by analyzing a great speech and by learning the elements of rhetoric. And now they're actually going to deliver that speech to their peers. So that's one of our 9th grade, that's one of the things we have across the 9th grade.
So it's not necessarily like a written test, because I'm trying to
Right.
avoid a lot of
Exactly.
testing, right?
That's
So
right.
that's why I'm asking.
Well,
That's right. It's-
Performance is part of the class, part of the engagement and the
That's right.
commodity of the classroom.
That's exactly
Okay,
right. Yeah.
Perfect, that's what I wanted to hear, thank you.
And then there's also, even going next is there a public component of that? So do one thing with the classroom, which is very powerful, right? But then, like, for example, building the sheds is actually a very public thing, because other folks outside the community are using it, or in this case, giving speech to, an audience outside of school. And we have lots of those, right? So, but we go on and on about it.
Sure, yeah, there are lots of BioTrek things we did recently in our 9th grade biology classes is another example of a performance assessment. So, yeah, we're really excited about, obviously, excited about this, because kids get excited about them in a different way.
I just hear that word assessment, I'm like, please tell me not another test. I know the
That's right.
testing we do is good, but let's not add, and
That's right.
let's get more education.
That's right,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure thing. Okay, so on the next slide, we take a look at the vision of the graduate more closely. This is really about the support. This slide has to do with the support that students get, like how, in order to do some of the, performance assessments, we've added tier 2 interventions with skills and practice classes. That where students can work on underlying English skills they might need, underlying math skills they may need, or some of the organizational and social emotional skills they may need to be effective across the curriculum. We're adding for our English learner students, we're adding support classes for our beginners. And that had mentioned how these things dovetail with the budget ask. So by adding another ESL teacher at the high school, we're going to be able to offer these support classes again.
Can I ask a quick question? Are you trying to find somebody bilingual for that?
Yes, it's actually part of the, it's part of the posting that we're seeking Spanish and or Portuguese speakers. And we're also adding a North Shore Community College early college course that will be, it's going to be asynchronous, where students are one afternoon, an instructor from North Shore Community College comes to Gloucester High School, and then the asynchronous part The students have a block during the school day where they can work on, with support on the asynchronous part of the course. The other exciting part of that, it's really targeted at students who may need some help bridging from high school to college. That's and first semester of the course is about the college experience, right? It like teaches kids about that, how to be successful in college, and they get college credit for that.
Is that a dual enrollment? So like they're
It
getting
is,
credit
yeah.
as well?
They're getting credit for Gloucester, because of the course during the day at Gloucester High School, and they're getting credit as well. So that's something we're adding to, again, support students in this vision of the graduate. We'll be implementing Keys to Literacy practices now that across English, history, and biology teachers have been trained in Keys to Literacy. We'll be looking to refine our implementation of those strategies. These are, again, ways of helping us with some gaps students may have in their reading and writing skills at the high school level. And it's across the curriculum. And same with implementation of our dialogic classroom practices. Essentially what that is that that's a partnership with Essential Partners. John Saroof, that folks may know from our community, is an expert on classroom dialogues. And it's one of the best ways of doing the chew or active processing part of a class. Right? What do you, once you've learned something, being able to talk and enter a dialogue about the complexities of this thing that you've learned before you then go and apply it is essentially a kind of shorthand version of what a dialogic classroom is. So that's some PD we've done, and we'll be looking at implementation. So on the next slide, we're looking at making sure that it all up, now that we have a written curriculum for NEASC that was evaluated during the accreditation. In reviewing our curriculum, we're looking for, are we maximizing all the possible opportunities for students communicating, collaborating, and problem solving? Are we giving them opportunities? Instead of just having a test on this material, are they also able to collaborate with peers on communicating some important aspect of that to solve a problem? All right. Another aspect of the instructional practice is implementing, reflecting, and revising the written curriculum. So this is the written documentation that, again, we had to prepare as part of our accreditation. So this is ongoing work. This work never stops, right? Because you're always deploying a unit, you're implementing a unit, and then you're working with your peers in professional learning communities on what can we do better next time. Some of the examples of ideas folks have for summer work this year. Social studies, we're working on a civics curriculum. We're really excited about that for focusing on all 9th and 10th graders, getting that civics curriculum in. I could go on and on about those details, but it's not the time for it now. That'll be a time for later. Life science curriculum for our English learners, honing the biology curriculum, or what we call life science curriculum for the English learners. English 10 curriculum, they're really focused on materials that are going to promote diversity and cultural responsiveness in the classroom. And then our computer assisted design curriculum is, this is a great problem to have. Our students in those classes have been so engaged that they're moving through the curriculum at a rate, faster rate than we thought they would as we redesigned our CAD program. So they'll be redesigning the 2nd and 3rd year of CAD to make it more challenging for students. So there's more there for them. And that's really exciting. So that's just a sample. There's a lot of other work happening this summer, but that's a kind of a few examples of this goal and how we'll be doing it this summer. All right, now we're ready to move on to the social emotional learning goal. So to guide this work, we have several teams working on things. We have the social emotional learning school growth team. We've got our mental health ambassador students. You might remember that presentation from earlier this year. Our mental health and social emotional learning steering committee will be helping to guide this work. So we'll be piloting social emotional learning activities during our homeroom time. Echo, okay. I didn't touch anything. Implementing wellness strategies from this year's PD. So again, learning trauma-informed practices, for example, during professional development this year, implementing strategies next year, and planning and delivering more advanced professional development for our teachers and staff related to social emotional learning and mental health awareness. So the reason I underline the word advanced, because a lot of the general concepts are in place around relationship building that's part of culturally responsive teaching or trauma-informed practices. And the next step is highlighting by reflecting on student survey data, teachers' experience, designing PD that helps people focus in and hone in on the areas of greatest need moving forward with this initiative. So the next slide gets at the part about student attendance. This summer, we'll be working on operationalizing the new attendance policy. And that'll be guided by an attendance operational policy work group that we're putting together right now. Developing and implementing protocols for communication with families about absences and underlying reasons for absences and how absences affect progress and growth. Developing and implementing interventions for the chronically absent students. And then implementing the attendance team design that was influenced by the feedback we got from Attendance Works. To improve the transition into the high school, we're looking at 9th grade specific homeroom activities, and then continuing the improvements in our tier 1 support for students with our district curriculum accommodation plan, universal design for learning that you heard Lynn talk about earlier. We're able to add some academic skills and practice classes, math skills and practice, and English skills and practice. We've noticed that these courses that with the support of the committee, we've been able to add over the last couple of years, make a big difference in students passing classes. Kind of comparing students who came in with certain grades, and if they had the skills and practice class, are more successful than similar students who didn't have the skills and practice class. So that's good data for us, that's really good news. And so we're adding some sections and prioritizing adding some of those sections. Where am I here? All right. We'll continue to, so the third part of the social emotional learning goal is an inclusive, equitable school climate and culture. So we'll be continuing the use of culture responsive teaching as our guiding framework for all of our school improvement. In the fall, we'll be launching an Anti-Defamation League World of Difference, Anti-Bias, Bullying and Prevention and Diversity program, which entails training student leaders to be able to facilitate discussions on anti-bias, bullying prevention and diversity, and training staff on supporting this work as well. So that's with the help of Amy Cam. We've been working on that part. We'll be implementing professional development, policy advocacy, student event and activity planning, and awareness work that comes out of some of the groups we've added or strengthened. So for example, this is PD advocacy, event planning that's come out of our racial equity inclusion team that it has both students and staff. Our gender equity group, which is new this year, also students and staff, and our SAGA gender, sexuality and gender acceptance group. We have staff, school growth teams dedicated to these issues as well, the racial equity inclusion team, a culturally responsive teaching team, and our equity access inclusion team, as well as a positive school culture team, all of whom have events planned. Too much to get into all the details right now, but that will help us with create an inclusive, equitable school climate and culture. Oh, right, and then there's some more, I didn't fit on one slide. So really focused on our English learners. We're adding a program leader for our, to help with English learner education. So that's to support our ESL teachers, to support our sheltered English immersion classes. It really prioritizes English learner education by having a leadership position as part of our instructional leadership team. We're adding an addition, budget, adding an additional ESL teacher and ESL support position. And because of that, as I mentioned earlier, we're able to add that beginner English learner support class. And I couldn't, it's been so great having the English learner liaison in the school this year. I can't imagine this year without that position. So I put it in the slide just to thank the committee for helping support that last year. And all of these things complement the addition last year of the EL liaison. And then there's the, to loop back to the curriculum slide, because all this is intertwined, I just wanted to mention that some of that curriculum work we're engaged in includes updates to include more diverse representation of the texts and topics in our classes. So as we review curriculum, this goal is also always in mind, and you noticed along the way that there's some summer work that's already going into that. And then one more section, I think.
Really? What's all right? That's the last slide I have.
So I did, so it's the 8th to 9th grade transition, right? It's a good thing we had the,
Do we,
oh, you're right, no, that is everything. I changed the order, so you're good then. Thank you.
Can you circulate this presentation?
Yeah, and I apologize again, I was working on it with consolidating the, some of the feedback that I'd gotten to make things ready for tonight, to get it in the most up-to-date form to share with everyone.
Just a quick question. I'm gonna ask what I asked Lynn earlier. How many teachers at Gloucester High and how many evaluators?
I figured you were gonna ask that, so I did the math while you were, while Lynn was talking. So we have 84 and that includes school counselors, and there's 6 folks who do evaluation. It's a little tricky because if you're talking just about teaching staff, now we're in the 70s, and there are 5 people who are doing that, including the assistant superintendent helps with one group of people. So it's quite a lot of observation, and the other change in the budget to the coordinator of school counseling and operations position is going to help with that.
Will that be
Another-
an evaluated position?
Yes, it currently does, but will also, by not having the counseling load,
Yeah.
right, will help with that. The other thing that helped tremendously this year was moving the creating the coordinator of special education position. So then the person in that position, Lisa Williams, can evaluate special educators. It's a huge lift. And also through the grant funding, we'll have the CVTE director who will be able to, I'll observe anyway, but
Yeah.
I'll miss observing those classes, but it'll be nice to have that support for the 5 teachers in our CVTE program.
So you said you have 6, but we'll potentially have more.
That's right, yes, that the addition, one more, the
One more for the
CVTE. Yep, that's right, yep. And then things start to look manageable, yeah, which is exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, James and Linda Mora. I'll just wrap up by saying this, is that what you're hearing and seeing, just like with the other schools, is the right work for us to do it. Okay, it is focused on engaging students, connecting with students, making sure students want to go to school, and also really focus on the quality of curriculum instruction. We do so much in our schools. I mean, there, as folks know, I hope the public understands, like, our schools provide a lot of services in addition to just like teaching academics. Okay, that's the way school is these days. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, but it also means that we can lose focus and do many things. But if you really want to make a difference in the lives of our kids, you make sure they want to be at school. that they know they're cared about and they know they're known. And they work really hard to engage in doing really interesting things. And not doing them to them, but having them do those interesting things. And I really believe that our elementary, preschool really, but also elementary, middle and high school are really on that path. It's very exciting. So, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have a quick update on what we know about this next steps for our class of 2022.
All right, great.
So I'm up again.
You're up again.
All right,
Keep going,
good.
Mr. Cook.
I'm so excited about that. I love doing this.
We also have the second reading of CBT admissions policy.
I'd stay around.
Yeah, yeah, but we can just keep rolling.
Yeah, I saw that on
With the
here
Principal-
too.
with the Principal Cook show. Am I showing anything?
No,
Okay,
no, this is my enthusiasm and lots of colleges I'll be talking about and some other trainings and so on. Again, for a couple people in this room, this has been very real for some of us who are dealing with this, with our families as well as with students in our district, and it's been quite an interesting year across the country for college admissions and for post-secondary outcomes. A lot of the shifts that have happened because of COVID have had great effects on where students are headed in post-secondary. So I just wanted to start with, we'll try to group things into, meaningful kind of categories for people. And I wanted to start by talking about, we have two students, who will be attending very highly competitive schools. And to give you a sense of that, we have a student who will be attending Harvard in the fall. Their acceptance rate was about 3%, which is amazing, right? I was like, think about who applies, and then of that, only 3% got in. We have a student who will be attending Tufts University. Their acceptance rate was 9%, about half of what it usually is. So, it just gives you a sense of what's happening, out there.
And I don't think somebody's been accepted at Tufts for a long time from here,
Okay.
even though, there are people in the community that went to Tufts and tried to get,
Yeah.
be supportive of those kids that they felt that the kids should have been accepted. So
Right.
this is great.
Yeah, so it's good. Yeah, I think that this is good news, and it's just a tip. I just wanted to give two examples of that kind of thing about the acceptance rates that are extraordinarily low this year. But I also wanted to, create some other groups. So we have students who are going into schools. For example, so many students who are going into schools focused on science and technology. So great schools like Worcester Polytechnic Institute, Wentworth Institute of Technology, and Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. So a lot of our students are heading in those schools that are focused on science and technology. We have students going into other focused areas like Berklee College of Music, Savannah College of Art and Design, Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Science, Maine Maritime Academy, and Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So these are some of the most prestigious schools in these very kind of focused areas. Another way to think about where our students are headed is to think about how far and how close they're going. Right? So we have students leaving the region and they're going to places like the College of Charleston and Furman University in South Carolina. They're going to Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia, Florida Atlantic University, Lynn University, and University of South Florida in Florida. Heading all the way out to California at Santa Clara University, San Francisco University, and San Diego State. And we have a student going to Loyola University in Louisiana. Students who are going not quite as far, we have a couple students going to Penn State. We have students heading to New York at Hofstra, Syracuse, Sierra, and Marymount Manhattan. Students going to Sacred Heart and University of Hartford in Connecticut. Champlain and the University of Vermont in Burlington, Vermont. Quite a few students going to UVM. Heading down to Rhode Island, going to URI and Bryant in Rhode Island, and then UNH and Plymouth State in New Hampshire. There are the many folks who are staying a bit closer, so going to places like Suffolk and Emmanuel, out to Hampshire College, UMass Dartmouth, UMass Amherst, UMass Lowell, Salem State, South Shore Community College, Gordon, Bentley, Merrimack, Endicott, Western New England University, Curry, and then some of the other schools I mentioned earlier, like WPI and Wentworth. And I saved, for this part, 2 of my alma maters, Emerson College and Tufts University. We have students going to, so I'm very happy about that, to be at Emerson and Tufts. So those are, some of the kind of ways of thinking about it with specialized areas, some of the very competitive schools our students have gotten into, and then who's staying close and who's moving away. Altogether, so far, students are still, because of wait lists and students moving, putting a deposit one place, getting off a wait list to another, there's still some shifting happening. But this year, 44% of our students so far are heading to 4-year colleges, which is a bit higher than usual, which is really great to see. In addition to college, we have other folks who are heading to 5th year, right? A bridge year, students who are all sorts of very interesting plans of taking a gap year in different parts of the world, whether they have an internship waiting for them, heading to family in Europe. And I know there was one
You
here.
mentioned a student is going to school in Germany for.
That's right, yes, that student didn't put into this
There you
category,
go.
but we will make sure, I noticed that
Yeah.
earlier today too. There's some students who hadn't yet filled out the information. We'll grab them before they leave this week, but yes, there's a student attending university in Germany as well.
So you have every student fill this out? So you
We
can-
do, yes,
Yeah.
individually, through our Naviance system, they fill it out and we can see who hasn't, and make sure we get that before they leave. Yeah, it's actually the last time we do that. If they haven't done it by the time they get their cap and gown, they have to do it then.
Yeah.
And when they get their, instead of, take a little longer to get the cap and gown, but they have to finish the senior exit survey, which is what this is called.
What university in Germany?
Yes, I wish
And
I had it.
Yeah, for engineering, civil
Yes,
engineering
that's
and family there.
That's
So,
right.
Any military?
Yes, there are also students who are heading directly into the military who already have their dates of starting. I was just
Any
talking to a
military
student who's
schools, like
entering the
anyone going to
Marines.
West Point or?
No one who's attending one of those schools, but students who are going into the military. And I was just talking to a student entering the Marines earlier today. How excited he is about it.
Now, when you do those sort of exit
Yeah.
interviews, the percentage of kids that say don't have a plan,
Yeah,
do you do anything in particular for them, with them, support them, keep track of them?
yeah, so often we're we're seeking to, so right now we have a higher percentage that we will end up with. So there are 30% about of students who haven't submitted yet. So the counselors do seek to connect them. One of the things we've been successful with is working with Wellspring on continuing that follow-up and getting the students connected. Wellspring also works in some of our English classes, our reading and writing beyond high school class in particular, where they've already built a relationship, and many of those students are undecided at this point. And then our other relationship is through Wellspring with North Shore Community College for that kind of, it's really helpful with students. We know that if students can get 12 credits, if you can get 12 credits, you're likely to finish your associate's degree, right? And then if you can't get you through 12 credits, and that's something where Wellspring is really helpful in helping us with the follow-up. And that's something we're looking to improve with the, it's probably been a couple of years since I talked to you all about the mentoring program that we've started in partner, funded with help from the GEF in partnership with Wellspring. That initiative is off the ground this year, it's happening. And that's incredibly helpful, that part of the partnership. Yeah, and it's also something that with the position change that we talked about earlier, the school counseling position, we're looking to being able to do more of that kind of tracking and work with the data when the coordinator of school counseling no longer has a caseload of their own, to be able to do more of this work. Any other? I've got a lot that I didn't mention here too, so I can answer a lot of questions.
So I'm just wondering, I know, this may be a little bit more post-graduation, but anybody going to Gloucester Biotech that's up into that academy?
We don't have anybody listed here, but we at lunch today had them in.
Oh,
So we
great.
had another event at lunch, during lunch that I was in my calendar. I didn't get to go down and see, I think John Doyle was here. But we know, and that's one of the things that we offer
Right.
and recruit all the way up till they begin their next session. Yeah.
Is there somewhere, because I think that promoting and letting people know sort of all the amazing things that students do, for, you know, this year, the class of 2022 is a really significant way to sort of let people know all the good things happening in our schools and where kids go. So I've jotted things down, but is there anywhere to get like a list? Or
Oh, yeah, so yes, and I happen to know that Ethan Foreman from the Gloucester Daily Times is listening tonight. He and I spoke recently. He would like to do an article on our graduates' plans, and I asked him to, as he often does, tune in tonight to hear the quick update, but we'll follow up and work with him so he has, you know, just good information. And perhaps also he expressed interest in speaking to a few students that are, you know, that have, you know, disparate, a variety of plans. And so we hope to get that in the paper, but then also get together something to post as well.
Right, something for our website.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, I think it's, I mean, as you're hearing,
Right.
incredible range.
Right.
Of pathways for our students and just, you know, all really, you know, leading them to great things. And so really want to make sure that we not only, you know, recognize them, but also make sure the community knows just how great they're doing.
Right, and the diversity of experience is really quite something.
Yeah, it's really, it's marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share that. It's exciting news.
Okay, do you want to do CBT policy just because?
Yes, we can.
Is here, is that be all right?
Without objection, to the second reading. So under action, we have the second reading of the Career Vocational Technical Education Admissions Policy, file JFA. And last meeting, we approved the first reading.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just the minor change that the committee identified during the first reading was through a copy and paste error. It said in a few places, resident of Gloucester Public Schools, which while our students are in our schools a lot, they are not residents of them. So we just had to change that to residents of Gloucester, because there is a difference between the admissions policy for residents, students who are residents of Gloucester, and those students who are come to our school but are not residents of Gloucester, they live in a different town. So that was cleared up, but that was the only change in terms of the policy. If you have other questions on the policy, James can answer them, and I can help too if possible.
I have a quick question. Only because I wasn't here at the last meeting when this was presented.
Mhm.
I've worked on admission policies at other schools, so a lot of this language looks very familiar, but where did this come from? Did you find best practices? Was there a draft from the Board of Education, combination?
All the above, yes. So yeah, it's based
It's
heavily.
well written, and
Yeah.
and it's very similar to others I've seen, so that's why I was just
I
wondering.
think we all use the DESIs. And then what I did is I went and looked at schools who are more similar to
Yeah.
ours. Because there's some language from DESI that really applied to the regional vocational schools, right?
Yeah.
And not so much. So I wanted to.
Like TV and Salem or something?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I went, Barnstable was helpful, like I looked at the Cape, there were other schools that seemed more similar to ours, and I took a few things, consulting with our CBT teachers and with our coordinator of school counseling to make something that we thought would work best for us.
And that's where you got the lottery language?
It's exactly right, yep.
Good, thanks.
So I don't think I noticed this last time, but we have in here, we have specific email addresses for personnel in our policy, which seems like we wouldn't necessarily want to have, it's one thing to have the main number, the guidance department office, or whatever, but we don't want to have to adjust the policy of personnel.
And I think that came just so that makes a lot of sense to me. I know that the policy then needs to be posted on our website, which we would want people to know.
Right.
So do we think we can marry the two where in the policy that goes in the file, it has the role, not the address, but then when we post it, which is a huge part of this, that the state requires that we would put those back in. So a person looking at it
Can act.
could act, not on the
Not
school
the
committee
policy-
policy
not the policy
document
manual, not the policy
website,
manual. Yeah,
right,
easy.
but in what we post, yeah.
Easy to do.
Isn't this a policy we're supposed to approve every year?
That's a great question.
I think it is,
I
and
think
that's
it
why
is
when I
too.
saw the
It's
name,
part
I was
of
like,
the
I don't know if
new-
I like that, but knowing that we're supposed to review it every year, I'm like, okay, we can update it as we review it every
I
year.
believe that is part of the new requirement,
Yeah,
because that has to be
I think
done
it
every
is.
year, yeah.
So
So then we leave it as is.
leave it as is and update it accordingly when we review it.
Okay.
Melissa, that makes a lot of sense, because that's
Well-
probably why the states, like why the
Why you're
template
doing it
had
this
that,
year,
right,
yeah.
because it would be each year.
But I think it gives good information for someone looking to.
Right.
Do we have a motion to approve the second reading of career vocational technical education admissions policy file JFA?
So moved.
Any more discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Verga.
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
And Ms. Prince.
Yes. So now this is approved. Right?
Three readings or two?
I got two. Okay. So we now have an official policy.
With the
Great.
date on the bottom of adoption, adoption date.
Yeah, we can take care of that.
Okay. Thank you, Principal Cook.
Thank you, yeah.
You get two gold stars now.
What's that?
Two gold stars now.
That's right,
You're on
yeah.
a roll tonight.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you.
For being there. Thank you for all.
You know, thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's super.
Yep. Alrighty. Okay, so what I'll go through here, just a few things. The COVID update, and then also my update on my evaluation. Those are two areas. So give the COVID update to start. Gloucester's wastewater testing results. So as you may know, I'll report to make sure everyone has the information. They haven't completed a wastewater analysis since 5/11. A couple issues with supply chain and partners. Do expect, speaking to the Department of Health today, that the next set of wastewater results should be available this Friday. That's not rock solid, but that's anticipated, okay? As of today, there are 51 active cases in Gloucester, not in our schools, that's in Gloucester, okay? Good news in terms of our schools. As you remember, a couple weeks ago, Manly was coming off of an uptick. The 28 was on the downside of that, or no, just coming off the peak of that. But as you can see, things have in the last 2 weeks rallied tremendously. Okay, so we have a total of 27 cases right now, down from 74 2 weeks ago. A lot fewer staff, obviously many fewer students. So really just doing a lot better. There is, concern because of public reports and wastewater results in the Globe, that sort of thing. Certainly people know people who have COVID these days. But we're not seeing that in schools. So that was good news. And so that's, I think, reassuring some folks that we're doing okay. I think we are. We are making some changes just around we're still making some adjustments, making tests available for a few situations. So for the seniors, making them more widely available for in the last couple weeks of their events, and are providing additional at-home tests for all the seniors who are enrolled in the at-home testing program, and then also have reminded the other families, senior families of seniors, to you can enroll. Okay, so making those more available to them, in addition to a regular schedule of at-home tests. And we've given them actually specific dates to test on, which help them in advance of events like senior picnic or prom or graduation. So James and the nurses there communicate on that. And then another area is there's a retirement party hosted by the GTA every year. That's inside this year at the cruise port, and that's another place where we're providing our staff, if they want them tests before that. We wouldn't want any retirement party, which is celebration of our staff, to become something that didn't say that. I didn't say that. And so working on that on those levels as well. So then these are just the recent tests for the last couple weeks. I mean, added to so really the last 5 weeks. You'll see that are pretty consistent in terms of how many tests we're providing every week these days. 12 positives were found this week through our pools, and then 2 were reported through the at-home tests. So that's included; those are included in the number that just gave you from total. There is a change, which is brand new, which is why you may not have heard about it. As you remember, you updated a face mask policy on February 16th, and part of that was, we worked together to make sure that in the updated policy that we would continue to comply with any applicable federal, state, or local laws and regulations, any orders or mandates from State Department of Elementary or the State Department of Health. Well, today, it was announced, effective today, okay, that we're making the state's making the State Department of Public Health, Executive Office of Health and Human Services, and DESE announced that there's a minor change in their mask regulations, requirements, I should say. So children test positive, as I said, for these 5 days. That's the same, nothing changed on that. If they're asymptomatic or symptoms are resolving, they've been fever-free for 24 hours, they may return to programming after day 5. That hasn't changed, it's the same thing. It used to say that they recommended that children mask after that. They're now saying that they must. From days 6 through 10, they must mask, okay? So that's brand new, literally as of 11 o'clock this morning. Our COVID response team, so I don't know if any of you have had experience with having COVID or know someone in the schools have COVID, or COVID response team, which is 2 people. Sounds pretty grandiose, it's 2 people, really 1 primarily. Anyway, does a fantastic job at calling the family or the staff member, telling them, checking them about their symptoms, checking how they're doing, but also then giving them a timeline, and then calling back at the end of the timeline to tell them to check in again and remind them about masking, that sort of thing. Because of that, we've done pretty well in terms of, quite well, I'd say, in terms of folks coming back from COVID wearing masks, okay, not through and through. It will change our communication and we'll change our messaging on that you must, that you're required to mask in the situation, okay? It'd still be very, very difficult to enforce that. We will not tell staff members who has had COVID, just like we would tell them who has any other illness. That's protected information. But we will reiterate that's expected and that should. But really, I don't see a way we can do much more than that. But we'll absolutely do that. So I would also want to say that this is not for staff or adults, it's only for children.
No,
COVID isn't as bad as it
Yeah, actually, it's quite the opposite.
I wasn't on the call today, again, this is brand new, I did not hear the rationale for it, so I'm not aware of it, honestly. But-
Desi can't regulate that.
So,
It's coming from
but
both.
I think a couple folks on there.
Yes.
Is it, Ben, do you think it's advantageous? I mean, this is a policy change. Is it, should we put something out in an email to the parents? And I mean, they're getting it via someone on the COVID response team, whether that's.
Yeah,
nurses or-
Literally, I haven't thought that through yet. I do know, nurses and our COVID response team will do the communication to those folks who are affected. And principals will know and sort of thing, and so I don't know if we need to do more broad than that, but I'm open to suggestions. Again, honestly haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I've talked to Mr. Parco, and we're communicating. He's also talked to nurses already. Haven't even given any outreach to principals quite yet. So,
Yeah, no, that's.
Just, I understand the difficulty in enforcing it, but aren't nurses, nurses are aware of students coming back after the 5 days of isolation, right? So they are in a position to, if this is a requirement, right, they must do so through day 10. Obviously, nurses can't be walking through the building, but if nurses see someone who they know is on day 7, what would be, I don't know, what would be the issue with them saying you need to put on?
yeah, no, I think that's probably the one person who really could, but as you just said yourself, they're not walking because of the nature of the job, they're not walking around the building too much.
Of course.
Yeah, and then also, of course, in all our nurses' offices or health offices, masks are still required.
Right.
So anyone's coming in is definitely gonna have a mask, so,
Right.
but that's really the only person who may know.
There's also not a requirement for parents to tell the nurse that their kid's COVID positive.
True, I think we've had, I don't know for sure, it's hard to know, but I think we've had, pretty good reporting on this.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I just, somebody could be out for lots of reasons.
yeah, absolutely, right, yeah.
Maybe they're 5 days, so.
And right, if we would also check, we always do check if you have a sort of extended absence, but, so. But I think, yeah.
I have one other question. Just in terms of communication to classrooms, and this is not just COVID related. I know in some of the elementary school classrooms at West Parish, the nurse or somebody would email an entire class if there was so many cases of influenza, for example. Is that like a protocol that we have? Or is that just kind of the school nurse?
Lice, strep, flu, I think perhaps,
So they do say.
No, so we're not doing that now. We may be doing it hit or miss now. It used to be a regular practice.
Right.
When we started having COVID, started here, I think we started to reconsider that approach. Because obviously with COVID, we never, told classrooms, that sort of thing. And so I think it's something we gotta think more about going to next year.
Yeah.
Because then obviously for a long time, we had none of those, right?
Right.
And now, of course, they're back, right? So, but there really is, we sort of have to balance the health and safety versus the individual's privacy. So I think that's what we have to, I think it became more, through COVID, became more aware on those circumstances of the individual privacy. And that might supersede, the desire to.
I'm just gonna push back on that a little bit because I do think that the overall health of the classroom needs to supersede, not necessarily privacy, but we now know that masks do help, right? So as a parent, if I know that there's 3 cases of influenza in my kid's class, I might say to my kid, I want you to mask for the next 5 days. Do you know what I mean? We have more tools at our disposal, but if I don't know that there's flu going around my kid's class, and I'm knowingly sending them in there, knowing that I could be giving them a tool to help keep them safe, I think it's problematic. I think it needs to be a consistent approach, just because not every classroom is getting the same.
Yeah, I do agree that it needs to be a consistent approach. But just even what you said there is in many ways more information or more commonly accepted information, or more commonly known information, I should say, than we used to use before. A person who has a child who has something, lice, something else, strep, may feel differently about privacy than those, are worried about it. I don't, and so I'm just saying that I hear you, and I'm just saying that it's something we need to look at.
Yeah.
Because I think things have really shifted on, or broadened, let's say, on that approach. But we haven't resolved it yet, and haven't really done much thinking on it yet at all. But I think all of that is important, including, as you mentioned, that, I mean, if things return to the way, sort of seasonal illness has worked around here for many, many years, I really, as I said before, I really hope that mask wearing will become, more widely accepted, because we do know, I mean, one thing I'll guarantee is there'll be influenza in schools next year,
There has been this year.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. They're becoming common colds, right? And so, anyway, so what our role is in that and what families' role is in that, in terms of, just using mask wearing as an example, I think is something we really gotta think through, and then, I think, like I said, be consistent, so, but yeah, I think it's more work.
You get a legal opinion.
No, I mean, just, no,
Privacy issue.
it's, yeah, on that specifically, yeah. Well, because it is interesting, because it really just sort of, I mean, not just we, the sort of lice letters and sort of thing were very common across all sorts of school districts, it's sort of the way we did things, and I think that awareness has shifted now, so that's no different, so.
I guess I'm curious, Melissa, but like, if somebody were to say there's 3 cases of influenza in your class and they're not getting any personal information,
You're still identifying kids in the class though.
The challenge there is,
And
do you
you've had
narrow it
influenza
down
in that
enough
class
that
for
people start looking
years.
around and pointing fingers? Is really
Parents are gonna
the
panic,
risk
not
there.
send their kids to school, there's 5 kids in the class with
So-
influenza, you're not going to school.
Right, but I guess another question, is there a way we can communicate about it in a way, because we certainly did with COVID. Remember, we got
Right.
letters every time there was a positive case in the school. It came nowhere near identifying anybody, but people got the information that they could make a choice for themselves.
Right.
So I think that's the way we would like to go, is provide information where we're sure we're protecting people's privacy, but giving families information where they can act on it if they choose to.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure yet what that is.
Well, and maybe in Sam's example, maybe it's a general communication to the school, right?
It's flu
And
season.
say, it's flu season, we have some kids with flu.
Yeah.
That way there's, 280 kids. Hard to know who it is.
Yeah.
and somebody might also like consider their kid sniffle a little bit more seriously if they know that influenza is going through the school
Right.
versus if they don't, right? They might look at that symptom in a different way.
We ever had a year that influenza hasn't gone to the school?
Maybe last year.
Well, because,
Yeah.
but that's the first year,
No, yeah,
right?
no, but I mean,
Because everybody was wearing
You're
masks
right.
or at
I mean,
home and all that,
Other than COVID, and also, as we know, I mean, this is ironic, right? Looking back at last year, right? I mean, this is really ironic, right? Like, last year was probably the healthiest year we've ever had in our schools.
Right.
Certainly in terms of COVID, much healthier last year than it was this year. So just.
And I think the pandemic, because we're in pandemic status, allowed a lot of information to flow, right? But now that COVID's here and not going away, it's like gonna be like the flu, I don't think we're gonna be tracking COVID like we have forever. This pandemic will come to an end, COVID will still be here, probably be on to something else, hopefully a lot less. But I don't know that all this notification of illnesses is gonna be part of the norm.
Let me just show you one more update, because getting back to, how things are changing. So another update from the state today, and this is also just very new, so I'm just giving you sort of a high level summary of it, high level overview. This is copied from their memo today about testing for next year. So you can see the surveillance testing on the top, both that's the pool and the self-test, symptomatic testing. This is if a child came into the nurse's office during the school day and said, I'm not feeling well, and be testing at that point. And then also this bottom row is just all the support that the state provided the districts, okay, all free of charge. So where we are now, we're continuing all these till the end of the school year. Summer, things start to change, but really, if you look at fall, basically everything ends. Okay, there's no state program support for any of the testing in the fall. There will not be. I mean, we can purchase, so all our tests this year were free. We have the option to purchase them next year. Just important how they're available. I don't mean to make light of that. And then CIC, the state program of support, which is we've had testers in our schools every day. We've had, I mean, that's really what folks have done. And a lot of them have been tremendously helpful again and again every day. That all goes away, meaning the state is saying, at this point anyway, that not necessary. They don't think it's necessary. But we'll take, again, brand new information, we'll take this and understand what we will or will not do. I think work on that in the coming months. And also, it's likely that if things change in COVID, this will change too. So I just want to give you an update.
It could be that we get a vaccine appointment and get added to the list.
Right, of like
Something like that
yeah.
might be coming.
Yeah, so no idea, but anyway,
Which parents can opt out.
right. Anyway, just again, this is the latest news from the state. These are the two most important pieces. Just looking forward a little bit here. We will maintain the testing, the symptomatic testing for students. And I believe also, I thought the self-test through the summer as well.
So those two pieces don't really add up in my mind. Who put out that last?
No, this is just for the end of the year, end of the school year.
Right, no, I'm saying continuing into the fall, they're not gonna be supporting testing. So in my mind, that means that they don't think it's that important going forward to support that across.
I wouldn't draw any make inferences or draw any conclusions about why they're making these decisions. I don't know.
Who is this again?
This is the State Department of Education and Health and Executive Office of Health and Human Services.
Similar to the last slide?
Exact same.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
But another way of looking at this is that perhaps, again, we were both speculating, okay?
Yeah.
That they think that COVID will not be enough of an issue, that we need these protocols in place, okay?
We also can get federal free tests from the federal government, so maybe this insurance,
Right, but maybe they're also aware of something that the federal government's working on. I really don't know.
yeah, so I don't, for one thing, I'm wondering where this current slide here, no, the previous slide, that is. What's changed for them to change their policy? Is there new information that you've seen?
As I said, I was not on the webinar that you did today,
Okay,
but I can share the information with all of you in terms of their slides and sort of thing. And so you can look into it.
yeah,
Look at it. And I think they have a recording of the webinar as well. And typically when they make changes, they talk about the rationale. I'm not in the loop myself. Yeah.
well, they don't provide a fact sheet of like, hey, this is happening. this is why.
I'm giving you one fraction, which I felt was the most significant changes you should be aware of, which is one right now and one looking down the road on something that obviously our testing this year has been hugely important. And these are significant changes going next year in terms of, so.
I am looking at the graphs, from cases, I haven't seen any concerning upticks. I mean, there's that slight little blip. Seems like removing the mask mandate hasn't caused any issues now. I mean, even, suggesting that the wear masks seem to be working just fine, and then they changed their opinion.
Well, I would disagree strongly
Yeah.
that masks haven't made a difference.
No, I'm saying,
Since, just to be clear, since we took masks off, the level of colds, illness, flu in our schools is something I haven't seen since I got here, obviously, so
well,
that's
you
been-
can
that's
also
been-
attribute that to distancing, proper hygiene, education.
Nothing has changed in the school.
No, I'm just saying that
Nothing has
there
changed in
was
school.
a greater awareness of these things and other practices that we were employing at the same time.
you could. You could
can't
do
just,
that.
Okay, Okay, good. Evaluation process.
All right, so just an update on this. This is, jump ahead, you've seen this before. This is just a summary of my goals. So So we had to, needed to revise the process, the timeline process, because of the work we're trying to get done through the superintendent's, through the school committee meetings, all right? So working with the chair, Kathy and I decided to move my evaluation to June 22nd. So this is it's a revised, and also I was having, and also this is a revised schedule. Tonight I'm sharing with you I'll show it to you. Let me just go through the schedule first. So tonight you're getting, so you should have from Kathy already the evaluation rubric and document and template to use in evaluation. I'm providing tonight all the evidence towards my goals. I'll show that to you in a second. And then about 2 weeks for you folks to review the evidence and complete the evaluation rubric. June 8th, submit that to the committee chair. We'll check in on any questions about process 2 weeks from now. And then June 17th, the chair will complete the report, aggregating all the individual reports, and then that'll be reviewed publicly and discussed publicly on June 22nd. So let me just share one other thing here so I can. This.
Right after the past practice, we got a weekend.
Those timelines can be, that timeline can be adjusted. Is there any concerns?
So in terms of process, while you're looking for that, we also discussed that we should have a personnel meeting the following week after the evaluation to discuss the superintendent's contract and any movement on salary the week after. So we're thinking Monday for personnel of the 27th, and then a special school committee meeting for a one-item agenda to discuss superintendent's contract.
You're saying a personal meeting on June 27th?
At all, remotely.
Heading, no.
What time?
Do you want to do it after unit A? We're all there.
Let me check that.
So what you'll get from me tonight is this document. I'll share with you a folder that has all the evidence in it, but this is sort of the guide to that. You can see this pretty well. It is basically, there's a section for each goal. And this is similar to what you have, actions and then evidence, which is what I showed you earlier, but now it has links to folders or documents that are used as evidence. Okay, it's definitely not got it very well organized. Okay, and then another version of that. That's right. I'll just show this to you.
Did you send this to us separately, or do we?
I will.
Oh,
No, I'll say this to you separately. And there's a Google Drive folder as well. You can see that, right? There's that there. These are the documents you need for the evaluation, and then this folder has all the evidence by the goals. Okay. So you should be able to sort that through. If you have any questions along the way, I'm always available.
You've already shared that?
No, sure, Stephanie.
Oh, okay, all right.
In case you guys don't look at it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Just that. I think we're all set on my report. Let me just see. Yeah, that's all.
Just, can I just say one thing to the
Yes.
new members? I found this process a little daunting last year. So I don't know, I guess I was just saying, like, reach out, ask for help. Because it's a lot. And it's important. It's like probably the most important part of our job, so.
Besides hiring him.
Kathy did try to impress upon me not to put as much evidence as last time. I mostly did that, not entirely.
Just because, if you have evidence that supports, you don't need
lots and lots and
20
lots.
more of them.
Right, yeah. No, I think we did.
I like
Yeah, great
I
job.
like that.
I think it, well, you can tell me if it's success or not, you don't know. So, yeah, that's all set for the.
Anything less than 400 pages is great.
That's
That's what we usually get.
No, I think you're. I think it'll be
That's the
pretty-
best, how it was the best.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well organized. So it'll be okay.
Okay, thank you for that. We move on to subcommittee reports, and there were 2 building and finance subcommittee meetings on May 18th and May 23rd. Chairperson Melissa.
On May 18th, we met, the meeting was about an hour and a half, but it was a great meeting because we talked about a new potential project that is in the works for our schools, which is the accelerated MSBA window and door replacement at the O'Malley School. So we met with 2 people from a group called Left Field. It was Tim Baker, who has been assigned by the MSBA as the OPM, the project manager, and James Richdale, I believe was the name. He's the project director. And also Ann Keen joined us from an architect firm called Civitech, who's the architect that MSBA appointed to this project as well. We had a great conversation. We learned that an accelerated project does not mean a quick project. It means that MSBA did part of the hiring for us. Usually, as you know, when we built schools, we had to do the hiring of the architect and the OPM, but MSBA did it for us, and that's why it's called accelerated, not because the program is short, even though it will be. The project budget, any project that has a value of over $1.5 million requires a project manager, and that is why we have one, because this project is in the range of 3 to 4.5 million overall, with a 50 to 60% reimbursement rate from the state. So I think that gets us to about 1 to 2.5 million once if we are approved for this. The OPM acts as the gatekeeper to the project, as you know. We are currently in the schematic design phase, and the project will happen next year over the summer, not this summer. Again, the project's to be 3 to 4.5 million, and hopefully we get more of that 60% reimbursement from the state. I know the city's probably hoping for that as well. The schedule.
Yes, we are.
Currently, we're in the schematic design where they're getting prices and costs. On June 27th, the schematic design will be submitted to the MSBA, so that's coming up quickly. MSBA meets on August 31st, and they will decide whether yes or no, whether the project will go forward. We've been told that pretty much every project that goes forward to the MSBA has been approved, but there is that slight chance that it may not be. 2 weeks after that, an approval package will be sent to the city, where they will work together to talk about approving financing, and I believe that has to be done within 30 days of getting that package, if I remember correctly. September to November, they'll be finalizing the design, executing a funding agreement with MSBA. December through June of 2023, there'll be some bidding, awarding of contracts, proceed notices will be issued, window fabrication will be happening. They've come to the determination that right now it takes about 20 weeks to get these windows. They are custom, but they're common custom type windows. They just pretty much have to put them together. And then July and August of 2023, the demolition will be happening, abatement if that's needed, and then installation of the windows and other construction. After that, when the project is expected to be finished from September 23 through February 2024, there could be some minor construction to fit things that may not have been done right at first, and then they close out the project. The windows and the doors that they're replacing are over 50 years old. There is a large glass type dome window in the library. They're still speculating whether that's going to be part of the project. It's kind of a unique big dome, but I think it needs, I don't know that it's holding the cold air out as good as we would want it to, even though it looks great. This project will trigger some ADA requirements, which is in place for the main entrance of the school. That involves drinking fountains and a public bathroom that's already been identified that might need a little bit of work. At that same meeting, we talked about revolving funds, and Bill Melvin learned about revolving funds and how they carry a balance into the next year, because he was asking great questions. Revolving funds that included were the food service, athletics, school choice, and circuit breaker. These accounts retain the money as the year changes into the next year, and the CFO, who Gary's not here tonight. He just realized that. Reports-
He's on a roll, he's on a roll.
He reported that the balances, there'll be balances in all the accounts, and we're looking good going into fiscal 2023, which is in July 1st. We also discussed and reviewed the open tickets that we do publicly each month. That's the system where the staff can report building issues, damages, and concerns. Of the 6 pages that were presented, 5 of those pages, which is a lot, 'cause there's a lot listed on each page, have been completed by the DPW in the past 30 days. So great job for DPW. We have 1 page left, and there's only 3 items that are over 30 days old. So DPW has been doing a ton of work, and we commend them for that. We approved some transfers, which are in our packet tonight, which was basically just to balance out some accounts and preparing for the end of year procedures. So that information is in the packet. We also met this past Monday for a special BNF meeting. We met with preschool director Anne-Marie Jordan. Is that her title, preschool director? I thought she had a different title, I can't remember. She presented us with a new program that increases hours to have a longer day for our preschoolers. And are we getting this presentation tonight? It's in our packet.
In your packet, I can do the presentation, if you want me to.
I just wasn't gonna talk too much about it because the information is in there, so I didn't want to be duplicitous. Yeah, it's been talked about, and then we got a presentation, and the presentation's in the packet.
Yeah, this was about the tuition.
Right.
So one of the goals is they're expanding and making a 4-hour day, 5 days per week. They had surveyed the parents and found that there was a great interest in that type of program to be more than the 2.5 hours I think they were having. So that presentation's in our packet, which gives a lot of information. We did do a vote that is on our agenda tonight to approve the new fees because the hours are being bumped up. Just want to point out that it's important to note that they did a cost analysis and the per hour cost of the program is not changing. The fees are just going up because we added more hours. So when you see the increase in the rate, it's because of the increase in the hours. It's still the same rate per hour. After we took that vote, we discussed, we're having an ongoing conversation about the building use or the community use policy, procedures and fees. We received some draft copies with updates from the administration, who've done some good work on this. As we make decisions and changes to this policy, we're just about there on the policy and procedures, and we just need a good conversation about the fees and where we want to go with that. Because there's a lot of interest in who should pay and when and how, why. Those type of conversations will happen at our next meeting. But that meeting's on Zoom too, if anyone wants to watch it and see our actual conversations. But I think we're getting close to the end with that, and hope to bring it forward maybe before we break in July. I'm not sure. If not, we have a lot going on in June, so I don't want to put any pressure. It might not be until August. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, we'll see, because we did discuss perhaps bringing it back to the regular BNF meeting in June.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so-
But I mean, by the time it gets to this committee, if we're not.
Oh,
in
right,
July,
yeah,
so it might not be
yeah,
till
that's
August. But there's a lot of work being done, and I think
Yeah.
all can agree it will represent all that we all want to see in a great policy for that provides great resources for the kids in our community.
I'm sorry. Just a question, because I was hearing buzz around the bus stop, that so there's no longer a full day at the preschool for next year. That's what I'm seeing. So there used to be, there was a 6-hour day.
It was broken up into 2 different, a morning and then an afternoon, I thought. I didn't see a 6-hour
So
day.
it was 6 hours, Monday through Thursday. They're going to a
Monday through
model of
Friday, 4 hours.
4 hours, Monday through Friday. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
same amount of hours.
They're adding a day.
They're adding a day, but no.
It's short.
I'm getting this question a
Yeah.
fair amount, because it does, for parents who are working, it's obviously a big impact. So I just wanted to clarify that that is in fact what's happening. We are going to shorter days, just more of.
Adding a day.
There is very limited number of the full days, one of those full day classes right now. Okay, so it's, that's not the norm,
Okay,
okay? So, yeah, yeah, there's only one, and that's 4 days,
4 days.
4 days per week, Monday, to Thursday, and it's one of the classes. The norm by far and away is the 2.5 hours per day, either morning or afternoon.
I see.
You don't do both
You don't do
necessarily.
that. Okay, so this.
So some students do, but those are students, especially students with disabilities who are, different programs. So
Okay.
it's not like we're going from, the vast majority of offerings of a 6-hour day and moving on to 4. That's not the case.
Okay.
In fact, it's the opposite.
Right, we are literally expanding really going from 2.5 hour chunks to 4 hour days for most of the students.
But didn't
And,
Emery,
5 days a week.
That's just an important message
Yeah.
to be putting out there, because, as things go through the, playing telephone, it doesn't always come out that way.
but I thought Emery said that on some of these days, there was time afterwards for specialists with kids that were on IEPs, things like that.
Yeah,
So I don't know that this reflects all the hours.
That would be for outreach, that's all.
So then you have two other pieces, and this is just for student with disabilities, is you have
Yeah.
you have a Friday, sort of additional services that can happen. You have a couple options where they have a longer day,
Mhm.
okay? And then you also have another option for services on Friday.
Right,
So you might be in a one of our 4-day-a-week classes, okay, but you also get services on Friday.
but can't,
What-
I thought the 4-day, 5 days a week, they still could get services after that.
They can, but the reason you're not discussing those tonight, because those are tuition free.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just
Those-
wondering if that falls into the 6 hours, maybe not for
I don't know.
parents, and that's why I didn't understand it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Certainly, the best way to get answers on that is to call the preschool. And folks, anyone who has that concern or, wants some more information, certainly, and Kristen, Cadenzi or Anne Marie will happy to talk to folks and make sure they understand.
great,
what
because
the
the
options
teacher's day
are.
isn't over after 4 hours, I mean, there's still education going on.
Yeah, so this is, just another piece on this. I mean, obviously, we want to offer 5 days a week for families. We think that's, generally better for families, and I think that's what we've heard from them. We've been, with the 4 days a week, you had, if you think of it, it's sort of 8 to 2:30 teaching day. For any, teacher in general, it's not elementary, but any school. Within that work day that a teacher has, okay, by the agreement between the school committee and the teacher association, you have to put in a couple things: break, lunch, and prep planning time, which is different across depending on which grade level. At the preschool, because they didn't have that built in Monday through Thursday, they didn't have that time other than lunch and a break. They got all their planning time, prep time on Fridays. Okay, what we're able to do now is by having a 4-hour day, then have their planning prep 5 days a week for most of them. You have to build in the planning and prep time during each day. So that's why you can't, if you went for a 6, 7, or 8-hour day, of course, you have to have a lot more staff to build in all the breaks while the students are there. So that might make
Yeah.
sense.
I just thought I heard it differently, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
That's
thought she said there were services afterwards,
Oh, no,
that's
no.
why I didn't think the day was over
So-
at
so-
4 hours.
So in addition to what I just said, and
Okay.
that's why we have a 4-hour day, 5 days a week, but then there are services for student with disabilities in a variety of offerings on top of what I just described.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, you're not seeing those tonight because they're not tuition based.
Right, they provide a lot of outpatient
Yeah.
services after the school hours.
And for those who are enrolled too, absolutely. Yeah.
I know that the fees that are presented for approval tonight, there is an ability, if you have free and reduced lunch, that you could go with tuition free or a reduced tuition, like you qualify with lunches, so those fees aren't necessarily for everyone.
And that's likely something that we'll do an even better job on, because we'll integrate that with our process on, in terms of identifying free or reduced lunch families, families with economic disadvantage, sorry. In a more systematic way than we do, I think, K through 12, we'll apply the preschool.
But I think it's also important to remember that we're expanding the number of classrooms. So we're going from 1 classroom to 4 classrooms, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So that's a big.
And they surveyed the parents and this was the need, so I'm just gonna assume most parents know that this is coming because they would have got the survey.
Well, when just to put this in perspective, when not only myself and and Katie Rowe and Anne Marie talked earlier in the year, and then from the budget priority presentation, the BNF committee really then asked and pushed, about additional moving more of a 5-day schedule. I was really anticipating we might have a couple classes, just go from essentially 0 to 2, but they worked out, and the staff has been very supportive, and so we're going to 4, and may go more in the future. But so this is a really significant change, and then certainly I try to push pretty hard, but more than I would expect, honestly. So I'm pretty pleased with that. The work that Anne Marie and staff and Katie Bravo and Zia.
So that being said, it was recommended and unanimously voted by the BNF that the school committee approve the new preschool tuition rates as presented.
Second.
So moved. So
Discussion?
Discussion?
Okay, so just to clarify, as Melissa said, basically this is just proportional changes to the tuition based upon the hours that are available. So it's not an increase in rate, it's just a shift in the way the hours are, that the families definitely supported this particular structure, and it was, I think, much better educationally, kind of an advancement in how families are serviced as well. Great. Okay, may we have a roll call vote?
Mayor Verda,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
and Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. This last item of action is an acceptance of grant from the Gloucester Education Foundation in the amount of $65,600 to grades 4 through 8 for music instruction. Motion,
So, second?
any discussion?
I'm just so excited.
No, it's
Thank
really,
you.
really gracious.
Thank you.
Folks
This
understand.
is gonna be really good for us.
Look for my son next year.
I think this, I'm sorry, I might have missed, but this is, they've
Yeah, no, fourth
provided a
graders.
lot of funding this year
Yeah,
to
fourth
get us
graders.
back off the ground, and this continues, so
Yeah.
it's, and I do know that Rich Menendez, who leads the O'Malley Band, is a huge part of this, obviously, but also very excited, just like just Kirk, Irish Lundquist, looking at talent coming up, is the same way, so it's really a big help.
Okay, can we vote, please?
Mayor Verda,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
and Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Okay,
Madam Chair, are we doing the second reading of the attendance policy?
we are not, oh, sorry, we are tabling the attendance policy till the next meeting. To have a few more edits before we discuss it. Okay, that ends the action, and the last item is update on the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School building.
The only thing I might add is that now for a couple months now, we've been providing weekly updates on this, on the website every week. You can get it through some links right on the site. They did a concrete pour today, they'll still be going on, so it's been three days where they've been extended work hours. Today is one of them. If you want to go by and watch them finish up tonight, you can. And then a small interiors group met today, and we are finding colors for the ceilings and soffits and extended learning areas. That's very exciting. And also just got the first initial timeline on what they call FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures and equipment. And so that process of identifying furniture and also things like staplers begins in the fall.
And that process will include teachers.
Yes,
Bringing
yes,
furniture
very
for
much so.
teachers to actually have in their classrooms for a couple weeks so they can have it in person. The previous project had what they call a furniture fair, and I think we did it at, maybe, where did we do it? O'Malley? They brought in a bunch of furniture and teachers went, others went and looked. They think this process will be better where we'll visit a couple schools, few schools, and see what they have. Teachers can, figure out what they might want to try out, and then the things will be brought for a couple weeks. So instead of just looking at it, sitting on it, saying, oh, this is comfortable, and then you get in your house, and you're like, no, that's not comfortable at all. They'll be able to see how it works in the classroom.
But it's gonna be brought to their,
To East Gloucester and veterans.
to their current spaces.
To their learning spaces as a trial,
Oh, cool.
so that they then continue what they want.
I just have a question regarding that. When do we vote the name of the school?
Oh, so the nominations committee, I
I mean, I
believe-
read about it and I know it well.
Yeah.
No, I just wondered what the time.
we had an update when you weren't here.
Oh, maybe that's what I watched when I watched it.
Yeah, and then just give you an update, a further update. So the nominations committee, I think was meeting with alumni group today. They're meeting with Adam Kukru next week. Possibly, I'm not sure, he may be bringing a couple of veterans. So they can get input from both those groups before they narrow it down to semifinalists. And then, once they do that, they'll continue working on presentations about those names, however many they come up with. Expect to be around 10. Then we'll start sharing those publicly.
Like September?
Yeah, we were hoping to get it done, to put in front of you this June. It's not gonna happen. But probably we'll have maybe those 10 before the end of school, if not, so it'll go into the fall. But that'll be okay. We are with that.
I'm not rushing, I was just curious what the.
But they, as we reported, the students are doing just a fantastic job. They're just really, Amy was here, I think Amy and Matt were both here last meeting, and just were really pleased with the work they're doing and how engaged, how seriously they're taking it.
Bringing in veterans, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so really want to
cherry
get,
on top.
those are just, we just bought those, as we said, this was actually part of the initial plan. To have those two groups just, for obvious reasons, their connection to the two schools, right? So they'll hear those perspectives as part of the process.
Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Maria?
Mayor Verga,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Mason,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy, yes, Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Okay.
Good night.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody who attended.